Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Please take your seats and so that we can proceed. My name is Councillor Peter Barratt, and I'm chairing this meeting tonight. And I've got my members who are here in this committee present, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves now, starting from John.
Hello, John Muldoon, Councillor Roger Greenward.
I'm Councillor John Pashew. I'm a councillor for Perry Vale Ward.
Councillor Edison Huynh, Councillor for Lewisham Central Ward.
Councillor Susanna Clark for Grove Park Ward.
Councillor Liam Curran, Sydenham Ward.
On my left, I've got officers to assist us carry on this business smoothly. And on my left, I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
I'm Melanie Dawson, Head of Legal Services.
Dean Gibson, Principal Planning Officer in the Majors team.
David Robinson, Major and Strategic Projects Manager, Planning Service, Lewisham.
Thank you very much. This meeting will be broadcasted webcasted live, and those people watching at home or people who are on the web online who are members of this committee will not be able to speak on these matters, but they can also not vote on these matters at all. Members here, please only switch on your microphone to speak when you've been called by the chair to speak. And those people who are at home, please keep your microphone muted. Only members in this committee present in person will be allowed to vote on any matters tonight. Contributions are welcome from members either remotely or in person who are representing their individual wards. I have received notification that the following councillors will address this committee under standing orders. On item 3, I've got Councillor Chris Best of Sydenham Ward. I've got Councillor Susan Wise of Perry Vale Ward. On item 4, I've got Councillor Rudy Smith, who is on Evelyn Ward, and Councillor Rachel, on the course, he will be here as an observer. I have received apologies of absence from Councillors Jack Levery and Kim Powell. Any other apologies? No? Any declaration of interests? Councillor John Muldoon.
Chair, I should be recusing myself from determination of the Scott House application.
Any other interest declaration? No? We will have considered the minutes of last meeting. Unfortunately, we do not have them here, so we'll postpone that minutes to the next meeting. We are now going to start the application for the item 3, which is the land at Survey Canal Road. No.
Chair, may I add that we have apologies from, it's on your thing, from the two councillors, so that I noticed down in the...
Yes, I think I've read the apologies for Councillor Jack Levery and Kim Powell.
And Councillor
Edison is here.
Oh,
Yeah.
he said he's
Yes,
not coming here.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Just go to the format of this.
Yeah.
Chair,
Sorry.
can you hear me on this? Is it on?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. It's very hot here. I'd let you know that we've asked if it can be turned off or something, but it can't. Been told that it's going to be this hot. I just wondered if we could have at least the doors open if there's in the absence of any extraneous noise, because I think we're going to be here a few hours. I just wondered it might be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit hot here. I'm sorry that we couldn't control that temperatures. We can leave the doors open, I think, if there is no noise coming from outside, isn't it? Okay, I'm going now to read the format of how we are going to approach these applications, and this is how we are going to approach them. The following of the planning officer will produce a presentation and to the committee, which members may ask questions for. Applicant and agent, or both, will have 5 minutes to address the committee, after which members may ask questions. Representative and all residents with objections have a collective 5 minutes to address the committee, after which members may also ask questions. And also representative or residents in favor of the applications have a collective of 5 minutes to address to the committee, and after of which members may ask questions. Members are then allowed to ask questions of either the officers, agent, applicant, or representatives or residents with objections, and or those who have addressed the meetings and spoken in favor of the application. Members will then discuss and consider the application and the submissions heard. Afterwards, members will move to a vote on recommendations in the report. I will then confirm the outcome of the members' vote. The first item to be considered tonight is the land at the former Belgreen Gas Works, Belgreen, London. And now I invite the officer to represent that application.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So I'll just draw the members' attention to the addendum that was produced. It addresses 3 additional comments received from residents following the publication of the committee agenda, and corrects some of the paragraphs in relation to the affordable housing numbers. On decision making, I just draw the members' attention again to the application is referable to the GLA. Draw members' attention to the fact that tonight's meeting is one for members to make a resolution on the application. So the actual, following the committee's decision, the application must be referred back to the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, to make a final decision. Come on to the slides now, members. So the application is for the Belgreen Gasworks site. And the proposal is for the construction of 3 building plots with 6 blocks of 6 to 14 stories in height, 262 homes, including 71 affordable homes, 11 flexible retail workspace units, 8 disabled car parking spaces, and then improvements to the landscaping and public realm on the site. So the key planning considerations, the principle of development. The site is regarded as brownfield land, and in decision making, the MPPF gives substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land for homes and other identified needs, and to support appropriate opportunities to remediate contaminated land. The MPPF also promotes and supports the development of underutilised land, especially if this would help to meet identified needs for housing where land supply is constrained. The MPPF advises that planning decisions should avoid, just emphasise that, should avoid homes being built at low densities and ensure that development makes optimal use of the potential of each site. In this case, the site is also subject to a site allocation in the current local plan and emerging local plan, and it promotes intensive mixed-use development for commercial uses and particularly new housing, and the proposal would accord with the site allocation objectives. Moving on to housing and affordable housing, policy advocates the provision of family accommodation, and the proposal would provide 65% of the overall accommodation as 2 and 3 bedroom flats. There will be 27 M43 wheelchair units within the scheme, which would equate to 10% and be policy compliant. Policy advocates a 35% threshold of on-site provision of affordable housing unless a financial viability assessment, FVA, demonstrates otherwise. In this instance, following a review of the FVA, an on-site affordable housing offer of 30% is proposed. This will provide 71 affordable units, with 37 units, 62% for affordable rent, and 34 units, 38% for shared ownership. The affordable housing will be secured with early and late stage review mechanisms. Moving on now to urban design and impacts on heritage assets. In terms of urban design and conservation, the proposal has come about through numerous pre-application discussions and workshops, and the proposal has also been formed through advice from the design review panel process and with regard to the impact on the Lewisham Memorial Hall, a Grade 2 listed building adjacent to the site. The design has regard to the impact on its setting as required by heritage policy and with regard to the agent of change principle set out in London Plan Policy. Moving on to the impact on neighbouring amenity, the proposal would have no harmful impact on residential amenity given the generous distances to the nearest residential properties. Moving on to transport impact, the scheme would essentially be car-free in line with current London Plan Policy to reduce reliance on car travel, except for 8 on-site disabled car parking spaces, and that would meet the London Plan Policy for 3% on-site provision. The scheme also makes provision to promote sustainable travel choice in line with planning policy. Moving on to sustainable development. In terms of energy use, the development will exceed the minimum carbon emission reduction target set out in planning policy and would use technologies such as air source heat pumps and solar panel arrays. Those are the key planning considerations, members. Moving now on to the site location plan. So the site is outlined here in the red, so it's the former gasworks site, and you can see the figure of 8 here, where there were formerly 2 gas holders, which went up to about 9 stories in height. You can see to the west of the site is the Lewisham Memorial Hall, which is outside the extent of the site. And then you've got the Belgreen Retail Park to the west of, to the east of the site. And then to the south of the site, you have some residential and commercial properties at Pear Tree Court and Orchard Court. And then you've got a row of houses much further to the north, Silver Birch Close over here. And then you've got a sink over here, a site of important nature conservation, which links up to the Poole River Park over there. Oops. So this is the site's relationship to the Lewisham Memorial Hall. And you can see the outline in blue here is the Lewisham Memorial Hall site. So it actually extends around to the north of the application site. You've got some, again, over here. And the main building of the Lewisham Memorial Hall is here. These are existing site photos. So top left is the view looking south towards Pear Tree Court and Orchard Court. And those buildings go up to 8 stories in height. Top right is a view looking back towards Sainsbury's in the retail park. Bottom left is a view looking at the substation, which is a gas governor, which is outside of the extent of the application site, but there is an easement to that site built into the design. Bottom right is a view looking back across the site towards the rear of the Lewisham Memorial Hall. So that is just over there, looking at Perry Hill there. So slide 7 is the existing site context photos. Top left is the front of the Lewisham Memorial Hall. Bottom left is Orchard Court, which goes up to 8 stories in height. Top right is the Belgreen Retail Park, looking towards Sainsbury's. And bottom right is the existing street frontage onto Allen Pegg Place. So this is the proposed site layout. So on the right, over here, we see the site is arranged with 3 main built form components, and they have different uses. So the component here has a mix of commercial and residential. Commercial's on the ground floor, residential above. Over here is the 14-story block, which has 1 commercial unit at ground floor and then residential above. And then over here, these blocks here are fully residential. And I'll come on to heights as we go along. This is a proposed scheme. Sorry. So I'm just going to go back to the previous slide. So the site will have a main pedestrian access from Allen Pegg Place, which is over here, while the vehicle access will be from Spine Road over here. And the bottom left provides a visual of that kind of access into the site. So you've got the vehicle access coming in here. The scheme would be essentially car-free, except for disabled spaces, which would be located between these 2 blocks here. And provision for delivery and servicing vehicles is also made here and here. The scheme also includes an exciting landscape scheme that will provide green public spaces with plenty of new tree planting. Most notably at the front of the site here, where a new square will be formed, but also between the site and the back of the Livesey over here. That could provide a square. The landscaping layout also intends to reference the circular arrangements of the former gas holders as set out here. And the applicant is exploring opportunities to use remnants of the old gas holders as part of the public art strategy. So moving on to the proposed visuals of the scheme. Top left here is how it would look viewed from Sainsbury's car park. Top right and bottom left here provides a view of the new public square that will be formed fronting Allen Pegg Place. Bottom right shows the upward graduation of height away from the Livesey and towards the tall building zone in the emerging local plan. So this side shows the proposed heights in more detail, and it shows the higher 7, 9, and 10 and 14-story blocks are the ones set furthest away from the Livesey. And here it shows the area identified for the tall buildings zone in the emerging local plan. So if you look at the yellow line there, follow that. That area there is defined as being suitable for tall buildings in the emerging local plan. Tall buildings are 16 stories in height in this location, but the proposal is for 14 stories in height. On this slide, you just get a reaffirmation of the graduation of heights away from the Livesey. So you can see how it works here and there and there. The proposed elevations, this shows the front elevations, and the grid arrangement is intended to reference grid patterns of the former gas holders on site. So hopefully you can see that. And again, proposed elevations of the rear, and it shows that the same attention to architectural detail has been provided for the rear elevations as to the front elevations. Slide 14, this slide shows the street level environment between the 2 main blocks and the opportunity in the background over here to provide a lovely public square behind the Livesey. And again, we come on to the key planning considerations set out for the committee members, and officers are of the opinion that the proposal will result in a very high quality new development that would assist Lewisham to meet its objectives with regard to the site allocation and particularly with regard to housing delivery. On behalf of officers, I'd like to thank the residents and councillors for their interest in the application. Also like to express our thanks to the applicant team for the way they've conducted themselves during this whole process. This is a 10-minute presentation, but it's basically been a 4-year kind of process to get to this point. So a lot of hard work from the applicant team in actually getting to this point, a lot of cooperation. So thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any question to the officer? Councillor Pashu.
Right. Sorry, I thought you were indicating me. Thank you. Yeah, yes, Dean, that's another 4 years of your life you'll never get back, your working life anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'm convinced by a lot of the conclusions you're coming to about the external impacts of this, and its likely acceptability. I think my main misgivings about it are the internal design and therefore the level of amenity for the potential future occupiers. You say in paragraph 545 that generous and well-proportioned accommodation, and possibly I'm being misled by some of the previous internal layout diagrams, and I've not properly appreciated the change here. But could you elaborate on the space standards and the amenity standards that are provided in what's being created, and could you also extend that to how that is tenure blind with the affordable accommodation as well, because I know that's an issue that somebody's going to raise if I don't do it first.
If you just bear with me, Councillor, it's a very long report, as you appreciate, so it take me a while to get to the information. Thank you.
I mean, if it helps, the piece of either information or misinformation that I'd like to fact check about the internal layout is that there were internal layout drawings that were using especially reduced size, you know, the standard pictures of furniture to make the flats look more spacious. And as I say, that may be an illusion you can dispel that's based on looking at over that 4-year period, looking at some now obsolete drawings. I don't know, but I would be reassured if you could.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor, for your question. Yeah, with regard to the report, later on in the report, in the discussion, paragraph 545 advises that all residential units will either meet or exceed the internal space standards in accordance with the development plan requirements, and that includes room sizes and storage space. So I think sometimes the layout of furniture within floor plans can be misleading. In technical terms, the actual plans actually don't need to show that. It's just something that gives you a guide as to how furniture could be arranged within flats. But they all meet the standards or exceed the standards, and that's what we're assessing the application on.
Okay, I mean, in your presentation, there's a a very small scale drawing, I think, on in the proposed site layout, but I'm not sure that shows comprehensively the sizes of the flat units. And yeah, I mean, I know it's not required, but I think it would help me at least to reach a decision, and we are expected to make a decision based on adequate residential amenity of the people who we'd expect to live in these places. So that's and a drawing of that would help, or some explanation of it. That's why I'm going on this tack.
Okay, perhaps if I can come back to that later on in the meeting, Councillor, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can I invite Councillor Karen?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions, but I'll just do one at a time if I may, because they're sort of different stuff. The first one is, I've looked at the report, and obviously we've had quite a few reports, so I might have been my fault and I may have missed it, you know. And it's just about the designation of the Lewisham as an asset of community value, because I remember the Sydenham Society, of which I should say I'm a member, Chair, just for the record, applied for ACV status quite a few years ago anyway. And I can't see any mention of its status and all the rest of it, so I've just wanted to do that. I'll let officers know that I'll be asking this question as well.
I'll take that one, Chair. Thank you. I'm not sure whether the listing as an ACV is in the report. It's certainly mentioned that the Lewisham is a Grade 2 listed building. An asset of community value listing itself doesn't place any restriction on what an owner or a neighbouring owner can do to their land. It's planning policy that determines that. It is open for you as a committee to decide whether the listing as an ACV, asset of community value, is a material planning purpose, and that's perfectly open to you to come to that conclusion, although the fact that it's also listed as a Grade 2 property is also probably of somewhat more significance. The purpose of listing as a property as an asset of community value is primarily to give the community the right to purchase the property at certain points, rather than to prevent development, but it can still influence your decisions. Does that answer the question?
In part, yes. So I've been in other meetings before of planning committees where the members have used the ACV, legitimately as an issue on which to base a decision or influence a decision. I think the fact that it's Grade 2 listed and an ACV is important. It sort of reinforces its significance to the local community. And so on that aspect, as we are able to include it in our decisions, I just wondered where is it in the report? It hasn't. I can't see it anywhere in the report. There's a word asset of community value, and I've gone through the whole report, but I can't find what officers, what we should do about it.
Yeah, officer, is it?
Councillor, yeah. So what I'd refer to is there's an explanation of the effect on the Lewisham Memorial Hall in the committee report. The explanation's given in paragraphs 667 to 672, and then furthermore in 698 to 700, 702 and 703 of the committee report. And those paragraphs give explanations of how the impacts on the heritage asset was assessed, and also how the balanced assessment of the matter is assessed as well. And the conclusions of that assessment are set out in paragraphs 1065 to 1070. Now, just add on further to that, paragraph 3.9 is the GLA response, and it effectively says the proposal results in less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 listed Lewisham Memorial Hall, the War Memorial and the Boundary Wall, which are also listed. And the heritage balance will be considered at stage 2 of the GLA's assessment of the application, their determination of it. Now, the MPPF doesn't actually define substantial harm. Instead, it advocates the balanced judgment having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and the significance of the heritage asset. So consequently, the decision taker must take as a starting point the development plan and balance it and all other material considerations to arrive at a decision on whether or not to grant planning permission. If the benefits of the development outweigh the harm to the heritage asset, then planning permission should be granted. In this case, the officer assessment has identified some harmful impact upon the neighbouring heritage asset, the Livesey. However, on balance, the benefits and planning merits of the scheme are considered to substantially outweigh any harm identified. And I did make a point of actually setting that out in the principles of development when we're going through the presentation about substantially outweighing. The NPPF points that out. So that there's a sort of paragraph in the NPPF which actually would cover this. It gives substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land for homes and other identified needs. And I think we need to take that into consideration when we're thinking about the impact on a Livesey.
Thanks for that, and I appreciate that. But obviously, we're here to debate these matters. But I sort of go back to my question. The asset of community value isn't, and it's matters in relation to the application is not in the report that I've seen. Dean's talked about the, as, a heritage asset as designated with a Grade 2 listed building, but I can't see any mention of its status as an asset of community value, which has been used and is significant sometimes in deciding planning applications or can lend weight to planning applications.
Yeah, maybe I can comment on that as well. Councillor Curran, I think whilst we haven't, in those paragraphs that Dean's referred to, quoted asset of community value, what we have done is look at the ongoing operations of the asset of community value, the Livesey Hall, and make sure that the development on the adjacent site, the site application we're determining tonight at Belgreen Gas Holders, doesn't affect the ongoing operations of that site. So we've done that through the agent of change policies. Again, as our legal officer said tonight, we've focused our considerations on the Grade 2 listed aspect of the Livesey Hall. And for us, I think that is the kind of more important plan consideration. But it's a matter for members, I suppose, when taking the decision tonight, if you wish to place weight on the asset of community value and any impacts you perceive on that as a material consideration, then you're obviously entitled to do so.
Yes,
thank you for that. Yes, it's obviously it's an asset of community value, and it's not in the fact that it is an asset of community value isn't in the report, and its relation as an asset of community value, it's not there. Now, I understand what's been said to me by officers, but equally, when all said and done, the record will show nothing about the asset of community value, and we can't make a decision because, well, we can make a decision, but I don't think it will be informed because it's the asset of community value's presence is absent in the report. When it is a fact, and it's not there in the report. I'm surprised, but you know these things happen. But I'm just pointing it out as a fact. Thank you.
I think I would just add to that it's a matter for the decision maker to decide how much weight they choose to give to the asset of community value. What we've focused on as officers is planning policy, compliance with the planning policy, particularly the impact on the Grade 2 listed building, and the agent of change, the ability of the hall to continue to function as an asset of community value. I appreciate the words aren't there other than in the table where we speak about objections in relation to the proposed development being next to the asset of community value. So I get your point, but it is a matter for members this evening to give weight to the impact of the asset community value in your role as decision maker. So, I mean, I don't think there's too much more I can say on that other than if there's any specific issues or concerns you have with regard to the impact on the hall, we can probably take those, but other than that.
I've got other questions about this, but I just wanted it to be minuted that the fact that it is an asset of community value is not registered in the report.
Thank you. I think that is minuted now. Any other question to the officers? You said you have some other questions. Yes. I can. Okay.
Sorry, Chair. I was waiting. I was waiting for others. Okay. Next question was about. Can officers tell us about the fact that the examination in public has happened for the local plan, and obviously the Bell Green issue was. So this is connected to the master plan as well. But it was one of the issues that was raised by residents, and the fact that we're expecting the inspector to give his views or results and his opinion and decision about the overall Lewisham plan, and that includes significant stuff about Bell Green. Why aren't we doing this after the Lewisham plan has finally been resolved? It's only a few weeks away. I asked the officers dealing with it from the other side, and they said in November we should have the final thing. So this has been delayed quite a few times, this decision, for various reasons. I'm not sure why, some of them, but I wouldn't have thought it would have made much more difference, because it is a bit cart before the horse if we're going to make a major decision for something that's going to be there for 100 years or more. It's the first big building on the site. It's going to have a significant impact, as everybody recognises. And but the inspector is going to make a decision about what is appropriate for Bell Green after we've already decided on what Bell Green will look like. And can I just add, Chair, that all the organisations in this room, we're all YIMBYs because everyone supports the development of homes on the sites. Up to 5,000 homes, it's in the local plan. So that's not the issue. Obviously, we're talking about the style or what it's going to look like. So I just wondered, and I'm sure there might be a perfectly good planning reason, but a lot of people have asked me, why are we doing it cart before the horses, it would seem, because the inspector's going to tell us what Bell Green what the rules should be about Bell Green, and we're making a really big decision just before the rules become law.
Let's get legal to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the statutory timelines within which the local planning authority are required to operate. Once the planning application has been validated, the local planning authority has to make a decision as quickly as possible, and in any event within the statutory timescales, unless a longer period is agreed with the applicant. In this case, the statutory timescale is 16 weeks. It's for major development requiring an environmental impact assessment. The government has also got a planning guarantee that requires that decisions should be made within 26 weeks for planning applications, again, unless agreed between the LPA and the applicant. Where the application is not determined within the statutory period or longer agreed a period, the applicant may appeal to the Secretary of State for non-determination, in which case the Secretary of State may step in and take the decision for you. The deadline for submitting the appeal is 6 months from the date that the decision should be made, whether that's statutory or separately agreed. If the applicant also has rights to get their fee paid back if we don't make a decision in time. And then finally, the Secretary of State can designate local planning authorities that are not adequately performing their function with respect to speed and quality of decision making, in which case, and they can do that for major and or minor applications, and if we do go below that threshold, then applications can be made directly to the Secretary of State. There's also the wider policy interest in making decisions, that particularly those that deliver housing, as quickly and speedily as possible. In respect of the local plan, that process continues. We expect a decision soon, but there's no definitive timeline. We expect a decision around about November or December this year. The fact that that process is ongoing makes no impact on the statutory timescales that we are required to operate within. So whether it's a minor or a major application, we still have to make a decision. I'd say one further thing. As we've gone through the process of the local plan, there's been nothing that has brought anything that tall building strategies or anything else that have raised a concern. And I've spoken to planning officers this afternoon, and they say that there is nothing in our emerging plan that would, if approved, would lead them to make any other recommendation to you other than an application to grant a resolution in favour.
Yes, David, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add very quickly to that, I think our legal officers covered all the main points. I think just to reiterate, we don't have a fixed timeline from the inspectors yet as to when we're going to hear back in terms of the local plan. We anticipated it to be next month, and originally we anticipated it to be this month. You know, it could get pushed back further and further. This application's been in now for over a year, following almost 20 pre-application meetings with the local planning authority. As Melanie said, there's no indication from the inspectors that they had an issue with the tall building study addendum or any of the evidence base that underpinned that. I also add that we're in this context now where Lewisham is facing punitive measures for failing our housing delivery test, which push us on the tilted balance in favour of approving development. And we have been doing so on other sites. So, you know, this committee will have seen applications recently in Surrey Canal Triangle, Leagate Shopping Centre, Apollo Business Centre, to name a few in the last year. Leagate Shopping Centre, for example, in particular with regard to tall buildings, because I know that is, you know, the main issue that's been raised by members and by the public. In terms of heights, they actually exceeded the recommended maximum heights in the emerging local plan as well, which demonstrates that, you know, we don't need to have this local plan in place for us to make a decision in terms of building heights. We have the planning policy framework in place as it exists with the National Planning Policy Framework, London Plan specifically, again, with regard to tall buildings, London Plan Policy D9, and there's an extensive assessment against London Plan Policy D9 in the officer report. So we very much have the framework in place now to make a decision on this application, and we have been doing so for the past few years whilst our local plans went through the adoption process.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I just wanted some clarity on the single aspect units. Could you tell me where the single aspect units are? Are any of them facing towards the Lewisham Memorial Hall? Because I'm not quite clear, with balconies facing the Livesey as well from a noise point of view. But also, I understood that our policy, there's about 26%, is there, single aspect units? And what's our current policy on that, please?
Could you explain what single aspect means?
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. I'm just going to look up the answer for you.
Whilst Dean's doing that, I can explain what single aspect is, perhaps. So single aspect basically is a dwelling which only has one aspect looking out. So windows on one elevation, single aspect. If you have windows in 2 elevations, dual aspect. Windows in 3 elevations, triple aspect. And if you're lucky enough to have all 4, quadruple. But you're right. There's 26% single aspect in this proposed development, which I would say is quite low in terms of single aspect units, and we've approved schemes as a council before which have had higher. I think overall the quality of accommodation is good, 76 or 74% dual aspect, and to answer your question about the planning policy point, there isn't a minimum or a maximum or a threshold in which the developers have to reach in terms of single versus dual. It's all about minimising single aspect units. They've done so to just about as far as we can push them in terms of reducing single aspect units. There's some facing east and west, so yes, some towards the Livesey Hall. Crucially, there's none facing north. North aspect single facing units tend to have the worst quality of accommodation in terms of daylight sunlight, as you can appreciate. So I think overall officers are satisfied that there is a good quality of accommodation provided in terms of aspect, in terms of floor spaces, which Councillor Bashir was asking about before, but in terms of the layouts of the units being orthogonal, easy and conducive to more modern living. So I think the officer report has concluded that overall there is a good balance of internal residential accommodation. Sorry, is there anything further to add?
No, I think David has covered it all. I think none of the single aspect units face north, which I think is important. And again, in sort of the Mayor's Housing SPG, it identifies, although the number of single aspect dwellings should be minimised, it's single aspect dwellings that are either north facing, exposed to significant noise, or contain 3 or more bedrooms should be avoided, and that's not the case in this particular layout.
Yes, Councillor Clark.
So can I just clarify, it's not set out as any sort of standard? There's no minimum, maximum level? There's nothing to guide us otherwise? Because I understood there's no policy on this.
There's no threshold set out in the policy. There is a policy in the London Plan which on layouts, which kind of says, as I just said, that single aspects, or sorry, SPG as well, says that the number of single aspect dwellings should be minimised, but it does accept in urban environments that there will be occasions where single aspect units can't be avoided, but if you can try and minimise the number of north-facing units, then it's deemed to be acceptable. In this case, there's no north-facing single aspect units.
Forgive me, I just thought that our policy was in exceptional circumstances, because this is nearly a third of units, which seems unusual for me, and it's not something I'm aware of seeing before this. For me, it seems quite a high level, so I just wanted clarity on that.
There's no threshold in our policy or the London Plan policy for the number of single aspect units that should be avoided.
Thank you. Any other question? Councillor Pasha?
Chair, I noticed that Dean had dug out the internal layout drawing, and he said he was going to come back to a fuller answer of my question, both about the general amenity for residents and the spacious standards or whatever. so we can make a better judgment on it. And also the bit about how the affordable units are either distributed or concentrated, and to what extent they are tenure blind.
Have you been able to?
So here's the plan on the screen, showing a floor layout in the northern block of the development. And you can see the furniture and how it's arranged. I mean, what I would say is that these are indicative arrangements of furniture. It's obviously up to the occupier to decide what furniture they have in their flat and how they arrange it. So these are just indications of how rooms could be laid out. So although I've got my cursor over this flat here, where you've got a coffee table, an armchair and a dining table in close proximity to each other, it's the case that I think some people might arrange their furniture differently. I think the key thing is for planning officers and planning policy is, does it meet the minimum floor space standards?
Dean, I'm not trying to get into the minutiae of, you're in danger of generating a headline that says we're regulating where people can put their coffee tables, and we're not. So, but it would be useful. Do you happen to know which floor this is, by the way, of that block?
Yeah, this is the first floor.
Oh, sorry. If you can just move the drawing up a bit to show us is that the north-facing face at the top of it, perchance?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, north-facing. Yeah.
So I mean that would give us a good demonstration of the fact that all the units that have north-facing aspects also have another aspect, wouldn't it? Can you tell us about either the distribution or how the affordable units are going to be either distributed or whatever, and how they're going to be managed as a result of that?
Sorry, yeah. Perhaps if I get up another one of the presentation slides and show you that. Okay, so the affordable housing units are in these blocks here and these blocks here, so blocks B and E, and they are distributed amongst the private market accommodation as well. So there's no kind of segregation of affordable housing units from the private housing development. But the block over here, the tower block, is actually all private accommodation. But that's just the way it's been laid out. I think obviously you've got the affordable housing accommodation here and here, but it's mixed in with private accommodation as well. So yeah, as I say, no segregation between properties. Yes, sorry, just been pointed out to me that there's social housing units, social rent units, I should say, they're all in Block E. So they are, but that helps to a housing association, for example, to actually manage them more effectively than if they're kind of dotted around floors and different buildings.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Modun.
Thank you, Chair. We heard mentioned in passing about the tilted balance based on our performance in the housing delivery test. And tonight's not the time to examine that performance. However, could we have guidance now as to how we actually manage the balance? How do we decide what to put one side of the scale and what on the other? So it might help us when we hear from other contributors tonight.
Yes, Councillor David. David?
Yeah, so that's set out in the officer report and in both officer reports. I'm just trying to find the relevant paragraphs. It's derived from MPPF paragraph 11. So, as I said, mentioned before, the tilted balance is engaged as Lewisham have failed our housing delivery test, delivering only 51% of our annual targets, which means, sorry, I'll find the exact wording so we're all clear. Four two two, I'm told. It's not 422 in my. Okay, sorry. Paragraph 208 sets out paragraph 11D of the MPPF, as I referred to before. So it states that local planning authorities, inter alia, sorry, I'm just trying to find the correct word. It's a bit paraphrased in this paragraph as well.
I guess what I'm saying, Chair, is there an algorithm, or is it just down to our judgment, our stick our finger in the air?
So basically, 11D says that the local planning authority should only refuse applications where any adverse effects of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies as a whole. This is referred to as the tilted balance. So it puts a really strong presumption in favour of development when determining planning applications. So what you put in the balance is, well, you would normally, when determining a planning application, start out with what is known as a straight balance. Balance the planning merits of a scheme against the disbenefits of the scheme, the harm caused by the scheme. In this instance, we're starting off with a tilted balance towards the presumption in favour of development. That gets tilted further when you take into account the planning benefits of the scheme, the housing, the affordable housing, the public realm creation, Section 278 works and the works to the highway as a result of that, as laid out in the report. On the other side of the balance, then you have impacts on neighbour amenity, you have impacts on, for example, the Grade 2 listed Livesley Hall, which is documented in the report as well. So we're starting out from a position in favour of granting plan permission, essentially is where we are, and we can only refuse if there is, to quote again, significant and demonstrable reasons to do so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Curran, and then next I'll be calling the applicant. Thank you.
Just wanted to go back to the single aspect issue that, you know, the London plan does say there should be avoided single aspect dwellings, and it's talking about avoiding making passive ventilation easier. So obviously if you've only got one window, you can't really let the air blow through the flat. This is one of the causes of condensation and mould. So I've just read it strongly advises that you should avoid having artificial methods of cooling it down. So I just want to be reassured that that's not in the case. I could ask the applicants when they come about that, perhaps.
I can come back on that very, very quickly. I think, and again, the architect team are here, they can speak further to this, but we're at a point with this development, in order to eliminate the single aspect dwellings, you're talking about cutting chunks out of the development, which in turn reduces housing numbers, reduces affordable housing numbers, and affects viability. So as you say, we're encouraged to minimise insofar as possible the number of single aspect units, particularly north-facing single aspect units, and we've done so, and we're content overall. The development provides a good quality of accommodation. I think with regard to mechanical ventilation, it's difficult in modern buildings to avoid this because they are so thermally efficient that in summertime you will need an aspect of mechanical ventilation, and that's detailed in the report and taken in the round with other energy considerations also laid out in that section.
Thank you, and thanks for that. I think we can find in the London plan that what I said was correct. Obviously, what I want to do in this whole thing, I'm asking these questions, is because, as I said, this is going to be here for a long time, and I want the best quality properties possible that we can get under the circumstances. And I certainly wouldn't like to live in a flat with only one window, one room with a window. And they can't be in the bathroom and the kitchen. And these are the mould. At least I don't think it can. Perhaps they are. But anyway, we'll find out, because I'm not an architect.
David?
Just very quickly to clarify, there aren't any flats with just one window. There's several windows, just they all face one particular aspect.
Councillor Clark, is it
Just a quick
the question for the officers now?
Yes,
Because I'm about to
just
call
for the officers.
Okay, thank you.
Just very quickly on the overlooking and views. There was one of the letters, I believe, Pear Tree Court, that area. Just wanted to be assured of the overlooking and views, particularly in regard to that letter, that there's I know it's in the report, but could you just go over the impact on neighbouring properties, on overlooking in particular?
Yeah, so, sorry, I'm just going to just remind myself of the content, just bear with me. Yeah, so the distance to Pear Tree Court from the proposed development is beyond 28 metres. So if you kind of look at the report, all of the development is a minimum 28 metres from any nearby residential property. And in most cases, it's between 28 metres and 55 metres away. So a significant distance from nearby residential properties. That's way in advance of the 18 to 21 metre distance of overlooking that is identified in our SPD on residential extensions and alterations, which is the document which actually references distances and overlooking to neighbouring properties. But also what I'd say is that there is a move away from actually determining applications on a kind of rigid basis based on distance from properties. So you'll find in the next London plan, for example, there won't be any specific distance set out in terms of overlooking distances to nearby properties, and that's because they're trying to optimise the development of these type of sites, and they are aware that in the urban environments that there'll be occasions when there will be distances which are not achieved, which are less than the standards 18 to 21 metres that is sought by some SPDs in London. But yeah, that's not the case here though. I think, sorry, I'll kind of stop myself there, because I think what I'm trying to say is that there'd be no overlooking impact on the residents of Pear Tree Court that isn't kind of accepted and acceptable in planning policy terms and planning SPD terms.
Thank you for confirming that.
Thank you. Let's now hear from the applicant. could you please come forward and introduce yourself? And I understand you've got a team of technical team present here and also online. You have 5 minutes between yourselves to represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. My name is Tom Chalk, and I'm the Senior Development Manager for Barratt London, the applicant for the Bell Green application. Barratt London is part of the Barratt Group, the largest house builder in the UK. We have a strong track record of success in London, delivering around 2,000 new homes per year, and we're proud of our work in Lewisham to date, including Catford Green and Cannons Wharf. Turning to this application before you, it's a brownfield site and a former gas holder site where the previous gas holders stood for over a century. However, the site is currently vacant, inaccessible, and contributes very little to the local area. Our redevelopment proposals will therefore help to deliver a high quality and legacy scheme for Barratt, which will better reference and respect the site's heritage while delivering a mix of much needed high quality new homes and public spaces. Our proposals will make the best use of the site, taking into account site constraints and being mindful of the sensitive and adjacent Lewisham Memorial Hall, an important listed building and community asset alongside the associated war memorial. There is also an opportunity to celebrate the former use of the site by restoring fragments of the original gas holders and referencing the original footprint of these structures within the public realm. Overall, as you've been told, we are hoping to deliver 262 new homes for the borough to meet the challenging housing targets, including 30% affordable homes. That equates to 71 homes in total. And these shared ownership units are pepper-potted around with the private homes in all of the blocks except for D, and social rented in Block F, not E, as was mentioned earlier. There is no social rented behind the Livesey Hall. The site will deliver significant green and open space and play space, and the number of homes would equate to 16% of Lewisham's current annual housing target. The proposals will deliver an urban greening factor score of over 0.4 and significant biodiversity net gain. The scheme is car-free, save for blue badge spaces in accordance with relevant planning policies. And there is an estimated 300 jobs during construction and new jobs created once the development has been completed. There is 4 million paid out in Section 106 community infrastructure levels, should this be approved. And we have engaged with the local community since June 2022 and have continuously done so throughout the planning process of the project, including public consultation events, letter drops, briefings, and one-to-one reviews. Further to previous public, officer, and stakeholder comments, we took the decision to withdraw an earlier application concerning the site and prepare revised proposals and feel the scheme is better for it. Through public meetings with the local community and residents groups, we're aware of various matters raised from the application, and therefore I'm going to clarify some of these points. From purchasing the site in summer 2022, we have been fully aware of the importance of the Livesey Hall to the local community. Our proposals have carefully been designed to reflect this in accordance with the agent of change principle set out in the London Plan. We've carefully considered how our residential proposals will be compatible with activities and events taking place at the hall, and have such mitigated these impacts through using acoustic glazing and carefully designed balconies to screen the noise and also ensure privacy. There are also no residential homes at ground floor directly opposite the hall, and future residents will not be allowed to object to any disturbance from the hall's ongoings. Through the use of air source heat pumps and PV panels, we are achieving 68% overall carbon reduction, exceeding the relevant policy target of 35%. And the GLA's assessment guidance dated June 2022 targets a minimum of on-site improvement over Part L in 2021 of 31%, and also suggests a 50% improvement benchmark for residential. Therefore, our scheme is in excess of these. In addition, a carbon offset payment is provided to help ensure the scheme is net zero carbon. At the time of submission, we initially proposed 26% affordable housing by habitable room. However, through further negotiations with the borough and at Barratt's own risks, we have increased this to 30% provision, providing a further 12 affordable homes as shared ownership. This is broken down as 34 shared ownership homes and 37 affordable rented homes. These homes are being provided without any grant funding. We have also given the opportunity for Lewisham Council to purchase the homes for delivery as council housing. Further to public consultation and pre-application engagement, we have reduced the height of the scheme from 15 to 14 stories. The approach is a result of extensive townscape analysis, assessing potential visual impacts on the adjacent Livesey Hall and surrounding roads, including Perry Hill. The scheme is compliant with relevant tall building policies within the adopted and emerging development plan. On this accessible and well-connected site, we're proposing a car-free development, save for 8 number blue badge parking spaces in accordance with the London plan. In the event that the additional blue badge parking is required, up to a total of 10%, there are options to accommodate this on site amongst other potential options. If additional car parking provision is ultimately delivered on site, we've demonstrated that only play space for 11 to 15-year-olds would be impacted.
Out of time.
In this event will be provided off-site. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Members, any question to the applicant, please? Councillor Curran.
Thanks very much for the presentation. And one of the residents has contacted me and other members about the heating systems, and they're advancing the cause of ground source, which would meet ground source pumps, and that which would meet, they say, the requirements of the London plan. And they're saying that yours don't, in terms of, you know, economy and ecology and sustainability. Would you care to comment on that for us, please? Thank you.
Good evening all. Colin Sinclair, Planning Advisor to Barratt. Just to clarify, we've taken steps to optimise the amount of carbon reduction on site through a site-specific energy strategy, which has taken account of on-site constraints and opportunities. So our energy strategy is air source heat pump led. To talk us through that in a bit more detail, we do actually have Barratt's sustainability consultant on the screen. If we could maybe invite him to talk. So if I could ask Ross Thompson to update the members.
Yes, Ross, you can go ahead if you can hear us.
Yeah,
Yep.
good evening, everybody. Yeah, my understanding is that it kind of concerns the semantics of the requirements in the London plan, which does say to reduce carbon as much as possible. But it does also give a benchmark of a 50% reduction as what you're looking to achieve for residential, and this goes well beyond that. It is potentially the case that ground source could have a minor efficiency benefit over air source, but it would really come down to the risk versus reward. And I'm sure everyone would agree that heating and hot water are really critical services, and you considering the benchmark is exceeded, I'd say that simplicity and maintenance would also come into it, and you'd want to have a system that if something were to go wrong in the future, it could be easily repaired or maintained. And yeah, if you were to introduce huge amounts of complexity chasing a sort of a perfection, there'll be risks that come with that. The site is also complicated. It's not just the case that the entire red line area could be dug up for ground source heat pumps. There's issues with the bentonite wall, and there's also easements as well going on there. So yeah, that's essentially what it would come down to.
Thank you.
Either way, it's a fossil fuel free development. So there shouldn't really be any long-term concerns about global warming impact.
Thank you, Ross. So just to summarise then, our energy strategy both exceeds the policy requirements with regards to carbon reduction, but then in addition, we did the air source heat pumps strategy, which we are proposing would deliver durability benefits when compared with ground source heat pumps, so the ongoing maintenance would be a lot easier with our strategy. Is that correct?
I would say so. It's just a much more popular technology. I mean, historically, everybody's been using boilers, and we're in a sort of new era of heating and how that's delivered. But yeah, air source is becoming incredibly common. So I'm sure most people are aware. And yeah, I think for this sort of scheme, that would there'd be some real benefits there to having it delivered that way. And yeah, very, very similar schemes in London for almost all air source in my experience.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you very much. Question from Councillor Clark.
It was just on the same subject while we're on the subject, because I was going to ask about this. Have you put air source into a big development like this previously? Because I have understood that there have been some problems, some teething problems with air source, and that ground source is seen as being more reliable and can provide a more reliable source of energy and heat and hot water and everything throughout the day. So I just wondered if it's in other schemes and if you've had problems in the past, because it is very important that people get a regular and reliable source of heat.
Yeah, it's been used for a number of years now. I mean, they're never completely issue free. It's a developing technology. It's a developing industry. That you do hear sort of a lot of horror stories, particularly in sort of terraced housing where there's poor installations and they don't perform as well as they should do, and they're noisy. But those issues are fast becoming resolved for a variety of reasons. And it's incredibly popular and reliable now.
And just to comment on where we've used it, yes, we have a development in Wandsworth, Springfield Hospital, where it's been used, and the maintenance of it is much. I think what Ross was trying to explain is the maintenance of an air source heat pumps is much easier to maintain and durable given the access to it rather than kind of ground source heat pumps being underground. So it's the preferred approach for a development of this type.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question, Councillor Curran.
Could you just take us through about the bentonite wall? Concerns have been expressed about that. That was mentioned in the last speaker, but there were concerns that the mature trees around the site may well have penetrated it, and have you made the right accommodation to ensure that the wall isn't breached before you proceed with any development?
Yes, so just to clarify, steps from the outset of the project have been taken to understand the bentonite wall as a key constraint on site. We have our ground contamination expert on the call who can talk you through the steps which Barratt has taken and that they will be taken at pre and post construction stages to make sure that we fully monitor the structural effectiveness of the bentonite wall. If I could please ask Elena Landers, to speak.
Hello, good evening. My name is Elena Landers and I'm a contaminated land specialist and I work for RSK as an associate director. So the bentonite wall was constructed on the site about 30 years ago as a containment system to manage any purged water that would be migrating and taking all contamination off-site. But that was the situation 30 years ago when Gasworks site was going through the redevelopment and that some parts were not remediated at all. Since then, the majority of the wider area has been remediated and therefore the condition of purged water and groundwater is likely significantly improved. Belgreen site has been already remediated and there was a betterment from gas holders to the current level, which is the site is currently suitable for redevelopment for commercial industrial use. So basically the contamination that there was in the gas holders was immobilized and the gas holders were backfilled. Basically the site is suitable for, as I said, for commercial industrial use. The proposed development will increase, it will provide betterment even further because the site is proposed to be redeveloped for a residential residential use. Going back to the barrier was, there was a condition survey conducted on a barrier in 2003. At the time, the barrier was confirmed to be about 0.6 meters below ground level and is constructed of this strong concrete. Since then, no survey has been, as a condition survey, has been conducted. However, our client is proposing to conduct the survey before any construction or development work start, and this would be embedded in the conditions for the development and planning conditions for development. I don't know what else.
Elena, thank you for that. Just to clarify then, at the time at which Barratt bought the site, the available documentation did not suggest any potential issues with the structural integrity of the bentonite wall, but to be belt and braces as part of the construction process, Barratt will be undertaking further condition surveys concerning the wall at pre and post construction stage. So we've taken steps to understand the constraint, and then through the construction process we'll be taking further steps so that the condition of the wall is fully monitored. I'd also add, Elena, and I would welcome your thoughts on this, that given that we will be undertaking further remediation works on site as part of the construction process, the potential contamination risk from our site will be minimised further, even kind of further than it is now, because we'll be treating the soil on site, won't we? Are you able just to talk us through that?
I think the soil site of contamination has already been treated and remediated, been demobilised, and it's sitting at the bottom of the infield gas holders. So the proposed development will provide hard standing. That's quite an important point to make. So it will reduce infiltration of any rainfall or any surface water percolating into the gas holders and making contamination leachable, but that is very unlikely.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you
Also,
very much.
sorry, just
sorry.
I wanted to just touch as well. There's also the 5 metre zone around the bentonite wall on the surface, which is a kind of a no-build zone, a no-pile zone. So that's obviously taken into consideration all the way through our construction. And then also all the way through our construction, there'll be a dedicated person which will be continuously monitoring surveys of the bentonite wall.
And then groundwater on each side of the bentonite wall, which will together.
Thank you very much. I now invite Councillor Mudun.
Thank you, Chair. If we can stick with hazardous substances for the time being, what's the lifespan of a bentonite wall? I'm concerned because there is flood water in the area. For example, the Wildcat Wilderness, the playing fields, they frequently flood, and I'd be worried about underneath the wall, not above the wall, but what's going on underneath the wall. Is there any danger of hazardous substances, poisonous substances, whatever, being leached from underneath the wall?
RSK is probably best placed to answer that, if that's all right.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, not really. The bentonite wall is constructed into the land and clay, and land and clay is non-permeable geology, so that it doesn't provide matrix for water to flow through. So if you can imagine a bentonite wall being keyed into the land and clay, and the water would be only contained in the made ground or beyond the wall as such. So there is no groundwater in the geology beneath the site. I don't know whether that answers your question. And the site is not in the risk from flooding. So I don't think there is a potential for any contamination to be flashed out from anywhere on the site.
It's also just important to note as well that with the wider landowner, we have an ongoing maintenance costs that we pay for the upkeep of the bentonite wall. So should that get into any disrepair, there's a cost there that is part for the third-party landowner to repair.
Thank you. Can all the speakers come through the chair so that I want to manage this meeting because I've got a view of other people wanting to ask questions, and if we keep on like a conversation, it's not gonna be best for us. Councillor, you?
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell me about the concluded and ongoing gas investigations, given that some investigations found like an odour of hydrocarbon in kind of groundwater and soil profiles?
Yeah, there was some localized contamination found during the previous site investigation works, but these will be appropriately mitigated by the design. We previously had a meeting with contaminated health officer and discussed the way forward, how we going to mitigate risk. For example, it is proposed to put in vapor barriers in a building, in buildings. The water supply pipes and drinking water supply pipes that will be laid will have a special design that will include a barrier pipe. So that's the main kind of mitigation for the hydrocarbons. In addition, all the landscaping will be appropriately designed so that there won't be risk from any exposure to the future residents. We're proposing to put a clean capping layer in the soft landscaping, which will be an imported clean topsoil. So it's that. Is this sufficient for your question?
Thank you. Maybe he might have a follow-up.
Yeah, just a follow-up. So it's good to hear examples of those mitigations, but can you tell me whether can you confirm that there'll be ongoing gas monitoring given data gaps which were mentioned in the paper?
I don't think there is proposed to be any ongoing gas or vapor monitoring because I can't see it needs to be. The way forward is to prepare a remediation strategy for the site. We have got at this stage enough data from site investigation data to put together a remediation strategy. Last time discussing, as I said, with the contaminated land officer, she requested that we provide a detailed quantitative risk assessment as a part of the remediation strategy. So we're aiming to do that, but that will be all conditioned within the planning consent.
Thank you.
But there is none necessary for any ongoing ground gas or vapor monitoring.
Let us hear from an officer.
I was just going to add very quickly, and it's been touched upon, that there's a rather detailed condition in relation to site contamination at condition 18 of the paper, much more detailed than normal for good reasons, given the history of the site. And Councillor Yoon, you asked the question about vapour protection, part D of that condition relates to that, to vapour protection.
Thank you. Councillor Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Got a couple of questions regarding, one question regarding the Lewisham, the impact on the Lewisham Hall. I think in some of your previous presentations, you're saying that you can't see the building. It doesn't. Buildings behind don't dominate the hall. Do you have that in your slideshow still with the arrow from the opposite that demonstrates that?
Yeah, I think that was Dean's.
Okay.
Slideshow.
If I could, I'll ask another question while they're searching for that, so I don't delay everyone. Also, a lot of developments along the riverside in Greenwich and in Lewisham and elsewhere now have entry phones, obviously, so people can admit their guests. And I know this might sound a bit odd, but it is quite a serious thing because we're talking about affordability as a key matter in this. Can we impose a condition, or do you have any plans to avoid charging for the use of entry phones? Because in a lot of blocks, and it's really strange, but many people have to pay a monthly charge to use their entry phone and admit people, and after a lot of time people can't use them because they can't afford the upkeep. And it does look a sneaky way to sort of chisel more money out of tenants and residents. So I would like some clarification on that, and if we're able to make it a condition that there's no separate monthly charge, which can go up and up and up and then increase housing costs enormously.
So just to confirm, are you referring to the video entry systems in their main front doors and then from there?
Sorry, just to be clear, you know, you come in at ground level, you've got 20 buzzers for all the flats above, and some of those people can't afford to use it anymore, so you have to, you know, they just can't afford the monthly rent because it goes up and up.
So we have a service charge for residents, which includes maintenance of communal areas and landscaping mainly, and they're the two main things that we charge for. It's going through our service charge. It's definitely something that we can discuss with the officers if it's something that the committee really feels strong about. I can't say yes or no whether we do charge for those video entry systems because that may be included within the communal area or it may not be. I can clarify that point later to officers, and it's something that we can look at to exclude, definitely.
Thank you. Chair, I just think I'd like to make a note that we can bring that up in the conditions, because if it's included in the general maintenance, okay, then people can have to pay the general maintenance charges, but sometimes in the leases they're identified as a separate thing and they go up and up and up. So I just thought I'd highlight that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Curran. Any other question to?
Is that the photograph that I asked for? Yeah. What I was talking about is the actual photograph. So you see we've got the key viewpoint of the Lewisham Memorial Hall. Can you show us the viewpoint from that? I've seen previously a slide where you're standing in front of the Lewisham that shows the arrow.
Dean, I believe it's the verified view slide from the townscape assessment, which the councillor is asking for. We've also got a version of it on an iPad here. I appreciate that it might not be shared on the big screen, but if we're happy to pass it around the members if helpful.
Chair, if that's all right, Chair, they could pass it around. Sorry to presume, but I want to make a point. I've got a pointer actually. I've come prepared, Chair. Can I?
Right, quickly pass it off.
Yeah.
So that we can. I'll see what's there.
Thank you. Right, that's not the one I was thinking of, but anyway, that helps. Okay. Okay, that's not. It's not. But anyway, sorry, Chair. I'll make the point anyway, very briefly. That's not the photograph that I was thinking of, but thank you for handing it. What I want to say is when you stand there, just in front of the Lewisham, you can see. I'll wait until they finish, Chair.
Go on, Councillor.
So when you stand in front of the Lewisham, so this is the end of Bell Green, the beginning of Perry Rise, and if you stand there, it shows that when you look up, you can't see the buildings behind. So I have to accept that that's true. But what it doesn't show is the views from when you're coming down Perry Hill, and when you're walking along from Bell Green. So, and it's quite clear that there's an open view. So I find it misrepresentational. I'd just like to see. I haven't seen any photographs or mock-ups, you know, if you're walking down Perry Hill and you can see the Lewisham and you see this tall building behind it, and likewise when you're walking along the road from here, and I haven't seen any mock-ups. We see the one just in front of the hall, because of course you can't see it because you're just looking up, but from the side, and it is a valid issue about the dwarfing and the impact on the hall, the Grade 2 listed building. So I just wanted to make that point, Chair.
Thank
Are
you.
we able to respond to that, if that's okay? And we have our townscape consultant here who's able to talk through the steps we took to basically assess various views coming down that street. But if I maybe hand over now to Victoria. Yeah, please.
Hi everyone, I'm a associate director with Turley. We prepared the heritage and townscape.
Sorry, you can borrow one of our seats here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we just wait? Was that was
Just the technical team is just sorting out the microphone.
Hello. Perfect. So I'm an associate director with Turley, and we prepared the heritage and townscape assessment. And in terms of the views along Perry Hill, this is related, as you say, to the consideration of the relationship of the proposed development to the listed building. There's a series of views that we assessed in our assessment along Perry Hill, which was part of the consideration of the fact that it is a dynamic view that changes as you move along. As you said, when you're in front of the Livesey Hall, you might not see as much of it as you do to the north, and we assess that as part of our assessment. Obviously, the greatest area of change is to the north, looking south, rather than the south looking north, because of the distribution of buildings and vegetation. The proposed development will be a significant change. We haven't shied away from that in our assessment, but change doesn't equate to harm as a matter of principle in terms of townscape and heritage. And the effect that there's going to be a new relationship between an area of townscape that doesn't contribute to the significance of the listed building, and that contrast in character and built form isn't necessarily harmful in that context. While the site is currently vacant, obviously historically it would be part of the gas holders that were substantial structures, and the Livesey Hall and surrounding residential development would have been experienced in that context. In addition, there are currently taller elements nearby, and obviously part of the
Sorry,
site
excuse
is...
me, sorry. Sorry, gentlemen, can you sit down, please, because you are disrupting members. You need to listen to what the lady is saying.
So it's already experienced it in the context of other taller buildings, and obviously part of the scheme is in the emerging taller building zone. So there are also elements of the proposal that are taller than others, and that provides modulation across the site and will help with the transition between the existing townscape and the emerging townscape context. So I think we feel, in terms of our assessment, that the approach is appropriate, and obviously has been informed by extensive heritage and townscape testing, which tested a variety of different massing options with verified views, and that we came to the conclusion that this was the optimum way to develop the site in that
Victoria,
context.
can I just, apologies, just to actually summarise like a key point there, because there was a little bit going on. Just to confirm, there were several views as part of your townscape assessment coming down Perry Hill, which were assessed. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, there were several in our assessment.
And those viewpoints were all agreed with the officer team at
They were, yes.
at pre-application stage.
Well, thank you very much. There's a councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just, we've seen a picture just now, and it would be interesting. I don't know if the developers have actually had chance to see that, just to verify that that is a picture that is correct from the viewpoint, because it does look quite overpowering from there. So I think if we've seen it, I think they should have the opportunity as well to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Badoon.
Can I just ask for the record, Chair, who the gentleman who was showing those pictures was? So you're an objector?
Sorry, apologies. I didn't know that you're from the Forest, from the Sydney Society. You did not introduce yourself as such, and it is not right for you to circulate that, because you're going to have your opportunity, and this is the opportunity for the developer to bring in their document. You will have that opportunity to bring it at your time, which is going to be happening soon. Councillor Pashu.
Chair, I just to try and help you out here, I think we need to be careful about that all of the particularly the computer-generated images we see, which are purported to be views of the future, are properly verified by officers, and we shouldn't make any judgments based on any CGI that is not properly verified for scale and everything else. I'm sure officers can elaborate on that, but it's quite an important principle.
Yes, that is very, very true. Yes, David?
I can come back on that. It appears to be view 2B from the Heritage Townscape Visual Impact Assessment, which the applicant has submitted. And I think just to focus a bit, because there's been a lot said and a lot of images shown around, I think the officer report does demonstrate very clearly that you will see the proposed development in particular views. You know, that's no secret. These aren't small buildings we're talking about. They will be visible. You know, that is clear to us as officers, and it was clear to the GLA when they were assessing it, and the design review panel as well. The officer reports very transparently the impact on the Livesey Hall as a result of that visibility and the proximity to it. And we were asked before about the tilted balance, and it's for members to balance the plan and merits of the scheme against the plan and disbenefits. And in this instance, there is some impact to the Grade 2 listed hall. I mean, that's very transparently laid out in the officer report. But again, just to say, we're starting off with that high bar we find ourselves in with the tilted balance.
Thank you very much. It didn't help me because obviously I have a 12 people list who was from the developer, so it was very difficult to know who is coming in. Councillor Clark.
Just to make a point that to be noted, it's really helpful to have those visuals when it's a heritage asset. I think we should have those visuals as part of every report going forward, because working things out from just a sentence on a piece of paper is actually quite difficult. That visual would be very helpful to councillors. Thank you.
Yes, and as has been said, it has all to be verified. Obviously, there's all sort of things going on online. Any question to the developer? Councillor Clark.
Chair, it was just on the single aspect again, because it is something that bothers me. Quality of housing has come under scrutiny nationally, and I just wanted your comments on the single aspect and, you know, why it was necessary to be 26%, which is, in my view, quite high for a development.
To confirm, just before we invite our architect up to answer that, the single aspect figure is actually 23%. It's just a small correction. If I can invite Johnny from DMFK up to answer that, if that's okay.
Okay, introduce yourself and answer the question, please.
Hi there. My name is Johnny Wong. I'm a director of DMFK Architects. On On a site like this, you often have much more single aspect. It's the nature of long, thin buildings. We have broken down the massing partly to create, or the main objective was actually create connectivity through the site, but then also by having north-south orientated buildings, we didn't have any single aspect units facing north. Another way you can reduce single aspect units is simply have more buildings, as in you break down the buildings, but this is a very constrained site, and we wanted to obtain the best feeling buildings and also the most number of homes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no other question from the developer, I think I've been notified there is objectors. Yeah, sorry, take a seat, please. Thank you. There are
Thank you.
Objectors from the Sydenham Society. Oh, Belgreen and Belgreen Forum, yes, yeah. Okay, you have 5 minutes, which you can share between yourself, whether here or online. Yeah, it's 5 minutes that you have to present now. It's a single speech. Okay.
Sorry, the objectors did actually get over 5.5, so if you could note that. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and carry on, please. Thank you.
My name's Julia Webb. I'm representing the Belgreen Forum. This is...
Hello, my name's Simon McCormack from the Sydenham Society.
Simon is our architect. Right. We accept that new homes are needed. We object to this application because we believe a premature determination will actually delay their provision. We believe the development as planned compromises the quality of life of its residents and falls below the levels mandated by the London Plan. Despite delaying this application, Barratt has failed to resolve critical issues raised by the GLA, TfL, Lewisham officers and at the neighbourhood meeting. The scheme does not comply with London's plan standards. It does not comply with the draft Lewisham plan, which demands a master plan to be prepared. In addition to these breaches, Apex and Barratt agreed in 2023 to hold a master planning meeting rejected by Lewisham officers because this application was ongoing. We therefore ask you to reject the application or that Barratt withdraw it to enable this to proceed. We submit the following as valid reasons to reject this application. Barratt has failed to submit multiple documents and detailed assessments. They've provided no proof that the site can support 262 homes whilst providing adequate provision of green space, play space and a decent public realm. Does the committee accept that all the necessary elements can be fitted into this cramped site as required? TfL says parking strategy should be demonstrated prior to determination. Under the London Plan, 262 homes require 26 disabled parking spaces to be available if requested. Barratt proposes to deliver these by removing much of the green and play space. The conservation report states that the setting of the listed Lewisham Memorial Hall group will be harmed by the height of Block E, the dark coloured bricks, and the lack of a screen of tree canopies to the west of the development. It says the blocks have an unsympathetic, cramped relationship with the listed hall. Block E is so close to the rear of the Lewisham and its outdoor smoking bar area that the 50 bedrooms immediately overlooking it will be subjected to persistent noise nuisance during evening events. The Lewisham benefits from the NPPF's agent of change principle, meaning that Barratt needs to find architectural solutions to ensure the new residents are protected, rather than burdening the existing business with complaints. Barratt's solution is 1, tell residents they should not open their windows, and number 2, prevent residents from taking any legal action complaining about the noise. This is unreasonable and will lead to conflict. The Barratt parking spaces will not be usable as the space is far too tight. Barratt are relying on borrowed space from the Lewisham site to circulate around their tower blocks. So its absence makes the pedestrian routes unsatisfactory. The 800 mil difference in site levels makes Livesey Square inaccessible. The developer's visualizations show landscaping which cannot be delivered. There are sustainability issues in respect of potential overheating. Lewisham's sustainability report cites IPCC predictions showing temperatures in London potentially rising by as much as 4 degrees Celsius in the next decade. Barratt hasn't sought to improve long-term outcomes with solar shading, deep inset windows or recessed balconies. No consideration has been given to using the piled foundations to install ground heat pump systems, and there's no evidence of any calculations for this. Barratt hasn't completed the active travel zone assessments to the retail park, the linear park, or nighttime assessments. Children exiting the development from either the east or south sides need a safe crossing. It's already a dangerous area for pedestrians, and yet Barratt maintained they are not legally required to prove it is a safe route for children going to the linear park. This is a small selection of the serious issues which abound in this application. We urge you to reject this application. Ask Barratt to work on a new scheme which complies with the requirements of the London and Lewisham plan to truly meet the urgent needs of the area for more housing and recognise the effect of their development on the current population. Thank you. Ooh. Excellent.
Thank you very much. And thank you for sticking to the time. Any question to the objectors? Councillor Curran?
You've raised something that we've raised already about single aspect dwellings. Would you like to elaborate any more, or do you think it's all been said now?
Please could we ask you to allow Darren to speak? He's our sustainability consultant.
Darren, are you online?
I am, yes. Hello. What do you want me to talk about? Single aspect buildings, or do you want me to flats, or do you want me to talk about heat pumps and so on and so forth? Liam, what was the question?
It would be about the single aspect and the impact on the overheating because of lack of draft.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the single aspect conversation, generally speaking, I think I'm correct in saying that the single aspect flats are quite shallow plan, aren't they? Is that correct? I think the single shallow ones aren't terribly deep. So I think if that's the case, then it's not terribly unusual to ventilate those from a single aspect. I mean, actually, the point is made quite reasonably about the fact that when you have a large building, not everything can be on a corner. So I'm sorry, that's not the answer you wanted me to give, but I think that on the single aspect, provided they're not too deep, that's not necessarily the problem. But they did pick up on the point that somebody made earlier. I think it was the applicant that the mechanical ventilation would help on overheating. The mechanical ventilation is not designed to do anything with overheating. Mechanical ventilation is maintaining minimum ventilation during the winter. Nothing to do with overheating.
Well, thank you. Any other question to the objectors? Councillor Curran?
Yes, sorry though. So this issue of ground source pumps versus air source pumps, what would you care to comment on that? Because this has been raised and the developers have made their points about that.
Well, yes, because the thing is that the London plan requires that all major developments reduce their carbon emissions as far as possible. That's the requirement. but not less than 35% below building regulations minimum requirements. And so the applicant has taken that to mean, well, you get to 68% and just stop. That is not what the London plan says. It says reduce as far as possible. And the applicant's actual submissions in their energy strategy reports actually acknowledge that ground source heat pumps would reduce the overall carbon emission of the development by 23%. Okay, so we have this development could have their regulated emissions reduced by 23% by their own acknowledgement if they were to go with ground source heat pumps. So we had the meeting, a face-to-face meeting, and we discussed all these points and some of the issues that have been raised by Ross Thomas, saying about reliability and that sort of thing. I challenged them on these points at the meeting. I don't have any answers to me whatsoever, and then they come to this committee meeting and just regurgitate them. They were given an opportunity to engage with me. I've designed massive heating systems all over the world. Okay, they didn't engage with that. They come to this committee and say the same old stuff. It's not substantiated. They had an opportunity to discuss that with me. And I go on wondering if anybody that has been fielded by the Barratt team has ever designed a heating system ever. I've been quite interested to know if that's true. So it's not correct. The ground source energy piles, they're not a maintenance issue. They are fit and forget. They go into the ground and they fill the water and they're coupled to the heat pumps through a plate heat exchanger. And that will then give you a significant reduction, about 25% reduction in heating loads, which relates to about a 23% reduction in overall CO2 emissions. And so therefore, it'll be interesting because the legal officer is on to know how Barratt Homes can possibly say they've met the requirement when the requirement is to reduce carbon emissions as much as possible. And this technology, by the way, is not some weird and fanciful technology I've dreamt up. It's that the London plan requires the developer to consider a range of exemplar technologies. And this is one of them. This is in the London plan. You must consider it. And in their various reports, they've actually said it is the best technology. It is the best technology, but they've said it doesn't fit. But they haven't offered any evidence for that whatsoever. I can't see any evidence that any specialists have been involved in coming to that conclusion. There's no reports, there's no thermal load profiling, there's no geothermal engineers being involved. It's just been dismissed because they don't want to do it. So it doesn't comply with the London plan with respect to energy, which is as low as it reasonable, not even reasonable, as low as it can be.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Councillor Clark.
It was just a quick question to the contributor about ground source and air source. I understand that air source heat pumps can be very expensive to run in cold weather, which is when you need heat. And that's why I was asking the questions earlier to the developers as well, because I'm slightly concerned that residents are not left with extremely high electricity bills. And I wondered if the contributor, sorry, I didn't get the name. Sorry? Darren. I just wondered if he could tell us a little bit more about the air source heat pumps that are being suggested and whether they are efficient and would cause problems within the development for residents in the future.
There's no reason to think that air source heat pumps would be a problem on this scheme at all. They use about a third of the amount of primary energy as a gas-fired boiler, but electricity typically costs about 3 times more. So depending on the tariff that would be negotiated, from a cost point of view, they're approximately neutral, sometimes a little cheaper, sometimes a little higher. There is a drop-off in efficiency in the winter, but you need to understand that the outside air, even at 0 degrees centigrade outside, is still 273 degrees above absolute zero. So there's plenty of heat to suck out of the air. There's a slight point around, sort of close to zero, where you get a bit of frosting issues. But the system copes with that, and you get an average annual effectively an efficiency, we don't call it that, but effectively an efficiency of 300% overall. A bit lower in the winter, a bit higher in the summer. You have to bear in mind that 78% of thermal loads of this site actually are domestic hot water. So, for that 78%, it's working really effectively for in most of the year. It's not that cold. So overall, it's okay, but a ground source system would reduce by 25% on that. And since thermal loads are 92% of carbon emissions, that equates to a 23% overall reduction, which is huge. You know, to reduce CO2 emissions for your building by 23%, just by putting some piles in the ground. And this technology, air source heat pumps, I was designing that 25 years ago. We need to move on. I mean, the comparisons are being made against gas-fired boilers in the building regs. I mean, that's a Victorian technology. It was the last century, certainly. I mean, we stopped using them in commercial buildings quite a while ago now. I mean, we went to CHP for a little while, but we shouldn't be comparing against that. We should be comparing what we can do, not buy something that's okay. We need the best. This building's going to be here for much more than 100 years. I mean, Victorian terraces are built to nothing like the same standard as modern buildings. They've been here 150 years. This building could be here, in hundreds of years from now. And
could I just say thank you, because I think Darren has really well covered that for us. We're very clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Alina, I cannot bring you in because you had your chance to do that. This is the time for the objectors, and in the end, you might have a chance to speak, but not now. This is the time for them at the moment. Councillor Curran.
You lost me at thermal loading because I didn't do very well at chemistry at school, but I can see you passionate about it. Can you explain what your qualifications are to make these assertions?
Oh, well, I'm a chartered engineer. I'm a member of two professional institutions. I was for about 3 years, I had a seat on the Institution of Civil Engineers for their London Energy Experts Group. I've worked all over the world. I've advised PG&E in California. I was involved in designing or proposing Harvard's Energy Master Plan. I've designed very large buildings, merchant banks, laboratories, operating theatres, and also large residential schemes as well. So designing big complex buildings and advising on energy is my thing.
Thank you very much. Another question to the objectors? No? Thank you very much.
Chair, not a question to the objectors. Can I suggest we have a 5-minute adjournment for a short comfort break between the objectors and the ward councillors?
Could I ask that we suspend the standing order to 9:30, when we'll have a 5 minutes break? Yeah? Yeah?
We suspend it
after 9:30 to have 5 minutes break.
Chair, the practical purpose I'm suggesting is that if any of my colleagues need a wee before then, they will disqualify themselves from voting.
But obviously we haven't heard the councillors yet, Chair.
Yeah, that is, we wanted to have the councillors first, and then at 9:30 we take a 10 minutes break or 5 minutes break, and then if that is okay with the members. Break now, yeah? Okay.
Chair, I'm just anticipating that we might take some time hearing from the councillors as well.
Okay. Well, can we suspend this meeting for 10 minutes? Right?
Can I just say before we leave, please, can we extend standing order now so that...
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Pasha, you got something to say?
Chair, Given the clearly the substantive nature of this application, and some of us anticipate the substantive nature of the other application that's been put on the agenda, I mean, I realise it's not the fault of anybody who's here who has done that bit of agenda planning, but what I'm proposing, Chair, is that we agree now to defer item 4, isn't it, the item about Scott's House, and not try and include that in tonight's hearing, because otherwise we are going to be here until very late, and that we make that decision now rather than later, so that we don't, although we've sadly invited people along who are interested in that application and not this application, that we don't keep them waiting any longer for something that might go on until the early hours of the morning, which none of us want. So what I'm proposing, Chair, is that we do conclude the consideration of this item, but that, and we suspend standing orders for enough time to do that, but that we defer now item 4 from tonight's agenda.
Thank you. A proposal has been put on the floor. Is there any seconder? Seconded. Yeah, all those in favor of the proposed? I'm in favor of that. Unanimous. It is for the interest of everybody to be heard, and obviously for the members to make an informed decision. That's why I think that it's good to propose, to adjourn this agenda. And we're going to be, the agenda for the adjourned meeting will be published on the 30th of this month, and it will be heard on the 7th of November.
Chair, that's just in respect of item 4 on the agenda.
It's only item 4 suspect on the agenda. Yeah, it's just item 4. Sorry, it's just item 4 if I wasn't clear. It's just item 4, which is adjourned to the 7th of November, but the agenda of itself is going to be published on the 30th of this month. I hope that is clear if anybody has gotten it out. Yeah?
May I speak? May I speak?
Chair, before the time runs out, what I'm proposing is that in order to facilitate suspending standing orders tonight until we've concluded the hearing of the current item. So we need to agree that before 9:30 in a few seconds.
Yep. Proposal. No, the suspended the standing order until the end of the item 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to
vote.
agree a time.
Agreed.
Until the end of it.
No, what time?
No, until the end of it.
Until the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed? Agreed. Yeah, thank you.
Just for clarity, Chair, I think the room needs to know that Scott's House has been deferred, which is item number 4, but we are carrying on with Bell Green, which is item number 3, until it is fully adjudicated. Is that correct?
That is exactly what I've just told them, yes. Thank you very much. And when you leave, if you are here for item 4, which is Scott's House, and you are going out, please move out quietly so that we can continue with the meeting without disturbance. Thank you very much, and apologies for coming. Let's carry on with the agenda item 3, and now I will have this opportunity to ask Councillor Best. Councillor Best.
Yeah, and Councillor Wise, both of them can come in together.
And Councillor Wise, if you can take the seat as well, you'll be next. Thank you. Understanding orders, you can introduce yourself and then carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Councillor Chris Best. I represent Sydenham Ward, and I'm also a member of the Sydenham Society, so I just want to declare that. A few points have been covered, but I'll amplify as I go along. Look, we all welcome new homes. We're in a housing crisis, and we know as councillors the desperate measures we are taking to provide temporary accommodation. So we do want quality homes for the future. But I believe what we've got here is an inferior design, and there would be a poor precedent for future developments in the area. I made the point to Barratt at the July 2022 public exhibition in Champion Hall that a height profile of 12 stories could be acceptable. As you've seen from the presentation, the tallest blocks are at the circular Orchard Court, which is 8 stories and mirrors when it was put up the gasworks. So I think that part of trying to mirror that is welcome. And the Home Park Estate, which is nearby, is also 8 stories. And I'm pretty sure there's nothing over 10 stories in the south of the borough. And like many objectors, I think the 14-storey block is just too high. And bearing in mind that the commercial units on the ground floor will be slightly higher. So I think once you've seen it, it's really doubling what there is in the area. So I think, I'm just making that point that it's just out of keeping and character. I have got concerns with the poor quality of the homes. The space offered in the smart, as they're called, starter homes is very small, it's very cramped. And on the drawings, you see it's a 3/4 bed. And when I talked to Barratt about this, the point made, it was for a single person to start. But, we all know people have partners, their families develop, and these are terribly small. So whilst, you've raised the point about in Para 545 about the adequacy, it might be adequate as a short period of a starter home, but as a longer term home, I do have concerns. I have concerns with the actual layout, that the kitchen and dining living spaces are combined. And we know from other aspects like this that the safety concerns when cooking, when you've got children running around, there's no adequate space for working from home, which has become more of the norm for part of the week, or indeed homework for children, which all could be detrimental. And indeed, we know about some of the mental health issues that have been put on our residents living in those small spaces, or very cramped, tight living conditions when you're trying to manage, different aspects of living, and you're faced with these challenges. You've talked a lot about the single aspect, so I won't necessarily say a lot about that, but it's just the fact that they are deep, and it could mean that the lights are going to have to be on during the day, they could be dark. You've made the point about the London plan trying to avoid them. You've made the point about overheating. And I am concerned, the report states on that mechanical ventilation, the MVHR, the fan units are located in a utility cupboard, and they're going to be on 24/7. And indeed, there may be an extra cost to that if they're constantly running. I make the point about the flats do have a small external balcony, but I think a more generous balcony that sits within the line of the building would be beneficial, and that would allow more than one room to open onto it. But the point's made in the report about greater privacy, and it's worth thinking about that, because we've often seen balconies where residents do their own thing to provide their own privacy, and I think if we can design that at the start of the scheme, that would be beneficial. And also you've heard the point from other objectors about the noise that could be generated because the Livesey, and they do have late night events, but it's in very close proximity, and I think further consideration needs to be given to that. I think what this points to for me is the lack of a master plan for the area. I think it's been a piecemeal approach with Barratt. I think that there should be a site-wide street-based layout integrating a potentially relocated Sydenham station, and I think members around the table might remember that was the view of the late Councillor Annan Pegg, to bring Lower Sydenham up to Bell Green. I think we could have a new bus station, health, education, leisure, social facilities, traffic calming, green areas. There's all that opportunity, but it's not set out because we don't have the master plan. And I think if we did, one could see that the 14-storey height as I say, it's the tallest building, but it's excessive. And then the heights, as has been made, of the emerging local plan haven't been ratified by the planning inspector yet. Now, I appreciate the timing, the point's been made by officers that you, the committee, have to hear it. But it's also, if you look at the wider area, I think that the heights could be incongruous with the Bromley border, because they've built on the other side of the railway line, and there's no overview of what's been happening. The other objectors, joint objection from Sydenham Society and Bell Green Forum about the Apex site is just so important, because if we set the precedent here, you've got the rest of the layout for Apex coming in. And of course, we do expect to see developments along Cangley Bridge Road, possibly including the Closebridge Leisure Centre and of course other council-owned land that comes on our side of the railway line. So I think having that overview would benefit us. I also think that maybe the point made by Barratt about the layout, that it's essential to meet housing targets that we have to meet as a council. But I do feel the Sydenham Society street-based master plan, and I'm told this, would deliver an equivalent number or indeed a greater number of homes without the high-rise. But, you know, they presented a scheme. It hasn't been taken forward by the council, and I just feel, I make the point, Chair, if there was a master plan, if that could be something that could be considered. I just want to say a point about the unresolved design. What you've got in para 380 of the report is comments from the design review panel. And their comment is that whilst noting that the presented designs were, quote, work in progress, the panel felt that the proposed building seemed underwhelming, rather unambiguous, rather represent a fairly typical view of a new London vernacular architecture, but it really has lost the opportunity given the rich history of this site. The panel felt that the massing and the architectural strategy lacked conviction and a uniting concept and narrative which grew convincingly from the unique characteristics, history and context of the site. And whilst I welcome some of the heritage points, and we had the discussion with Kia when they own the site about reusing parts of the dismantled gas holders, I do feel that reflecting on the fact of what was there, and remember the gas holders were locally listed, I think paying homage to some of that would be beneficial. A few points about transport links. I think TfL have outlined some flaws in the layout. They've made the point about insufficient space has been allocated to external circulation. That's para 329. They're talking about how that could be resolved. It may encroach on the children's play space. I think concerns have been made about the provision of access and the 8 blue badge parking spaces being insufficient. That's para 341, 342. The access hasn't been resolved on the service roads. That's para 344. I do have concerns that the PTAL is only level 2, and the Lower Sydenham station is states in para 331, it's outside reasonable walking distance to the site. And we know, having as a local councillor and local residents surely know, the safety and comfort of that walk is poor. There is a comment about in para 763, the active travel zone assessment. There could be a number of potential improvements to the walking and cycling routes, particularly on the walk to Lower Sydenham station, because it is dark, cars are parked at night. I certainly wouldn't be using it late at night. But there's no funding. It's not quite clear, and it's something maybe the committee might wish to consider, because TfL have asked for further information on the matter of the routes, but there's no decision on funding. And that's the old story, that we all know things need to be improved. Safety is a prime concern, but if there's no funding, you know, it's something to consider, something maybe from the SIL amounts. There's also, obviously, the car-free scheme, reference made to the bus services, but also in the report, Bakerloo line is mentioned, and well, it will arrive to Lower Sydenham station. Well, friends and councillors and colleagues, TfL, they're currently considering the options for extending the Bakerloo line to Lewisham, and according to their statement, that could be operational by 2040, subject to funding of some 8 billion. Now, we all agree, of course, there would be benefits if the line could be extended to connect to Lower Sydenham Station. Does seem to me that that's not any time soon, and I really question the comment about the benefits to the Bakerloo line when I just wonder if that's happening in our lifetime. In conclusion, I just think that basically there's too many unresolved issues in this report. They are fundamental to meeting the requirements of the Lewisham Local Plan and the London Plan 2021. So I'm asking if the committee would refuse this application to give time to rethink, to deliver a better environment for the residents, for the scheme to live in, to reconsider things like the single aspect, and really to ask Barratt if they would review the scheme, review the heights, in light of the many points that have been made this evening. So whilst I welcome the redevelopment of the site, whilst we need more homes, I think it needs to have the buy-in of local residents. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Best. Councillor Wise.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Susan Wise, one of the 3 ward councillors of Perry Vale Ward, and I'm also a member of the Sydenham Society. I'm here to represent my neighbours in Perry Vale Ward, and I'm also here as a local resident. I live a 5-minute walk down Perry Hill to the Livesey and Bell Green. I've been a Lewisham councillor for 26 years, and for 20 of those years I have been closely involved with Lewisham's housing. For 12 years as the Cabinet Member for Housing, 8 years as a Director of Lewisham Homes, and a member of their Building for Lewisham Committee as the delivery agent for the Council's housing. I was also Chair of the South East London Housing Partnership, which I hope shows that I am not and never have been against housing development, as Lewisham continues to have a desperate need for housing to address the high numbers of those in housing need and TA. What I object to is poor quality housing development accompanied by poor housing design and quality. My concerns and objections include those covered by my colleague Chris Best, and mine focus on the affordable housing provision, design and numbers of units and bedrooms. Only 27%, that is 71 units, of the proposed 262 will be affordable, with 37 at affordable rent and 34 for shared ownership. Of the 37, 21 will be 2-bed and 16 will be 3-bed. This is not acceptable when in paragraph 425, the South East London Strategic Housing Market Assessment has identified Lewisham's local need for family-sized dwellings, that is, units consisting of 3 or more bedrooms. I'm afraid I'm going to touch on the single aspect. Apparently, the majority of the housing provided in this scheme will have dual aspect windows, yet 23% will have single aspect layouts. My question would have been, which of these 69 will be in the affordable housing units? We all know that dual aspect is important for all, especially as it's preferred to single aspect, not only to achieve appropriate outlook, privacy and amenity, but for the flow of air through the property to prevent overheating and or mould, but also for other health reasons. There are also concerns with the open plan kitchen and living areas, not only because of the health and safety which accompanies the problem, but cooking smells move, and many residents don't really like this open plan design. My concern is also regarding Lewisham Council's latest housing delivery targets as set out in paragraph 422, where across Lewisham housing completions are significantly underperformed at 51% of the delivery target. Also, a target of below 75% under delivery presumes in favour of granting planning permission. This, combined with the figure of 3 beds, 37 across all tenures, which makes a modest contribution to Lewisham Council's housing target, meets as an unidentified need. Sorry, folks, I have a very sore throat. This factors as a benefit to this scheme within overall planning balance and could also presume granting planning permission. I don't believe these should be seen as reasons to do so. With regard to the housing provider or management of the affordable housing, who would that be? I did ask this question at the March meeting we had, and I didn't get an answer, and I don't think I have one next, and I wasn't able to see it in the report, so perhaps someone could tell me that, one of the officers later. I'm also concerned about the shared ownership schemes, which bring their own issues on service charges, rent, etc. One of the committee mentioned entry phones to those who purchase, especially where spiralling costs in the sector have been noted. I'm asking the committee to refuse this application for the following objections brought up tonight and in writing previously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Members, do you have any question to councillors? The ward councillors? No? Do you have any question to the ward councillors?
Not off the top of my head, no.
No?
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? That one.
Councillor Wise.
Thank you. Having been reminded of the CGI of the buildings as one looks up and down Perry Hill, I think they loom is the only word I can describe it. I don't know if that will translate into if and when they're actually built, but I've had many comments from neighbouring residents who have seen some of these and they're quite concerned.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more question, please, Chair.
Yes, go on.
To Councillor Best, you're talking about the open plan layout of some of the flats. I think we've discussed single aspect, but could you just elaborate on the problems with open plan?
Well, I think both of us have made the point that it can be difficult for families because there are a number of two beds here, and so you could imagine it could be a single parent with a child, and they're having to cook, they're having to look after everything, and the child's running around. And I've known in the past that there have been accidents in kitchens where you're desperately trying to cook the evening meal. The little one's had a busy day, or maybe coming in from nursery, say, in your mind, you've just got too much going on. And I think in a safety aspect, I think I have been aware in other housing schemes, having worked in housing, as you know, where they've put double doors in. They've just had to create a separate area for safety reasons and to split off the dining area from the living area, or include the dining area and the kitchen and have a separate living space. And what I'm saying is, going forward, more and more people are working from home, and so you do need some quiet areas. We would say that in any of our homes. Go back to Park Morris, they were separate units, separate spaces where families could live. And I think that's just so important, because these are homes for the future. You've got to think about, we know we've still got so many Victorian buildings. If we're looking at these for the next 100 years, it's about thinking how people do live. And if more time is spent in the home, they need to feel that they're in a safe environment, a spacious one, which I don't feel some of these units provide, some of these future homes are going to provide. And certainly those starter homes won't provide. So I just feel thought needs to be given into the whole living environment. These are people's homes, and we just know from all the mental health studies how important it is to be safe, to feel comfortable, to enjoy that living space and not feel those external pressures.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And other question? No? Thank you very much for coming. Members, we have to discuss this. We have heard from all. Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that I'm a little bit concerned that we didn't have the views of how the buildings imposed over from the street view over the heritage asset, the Livesey Hall. I'm a little bit concerned about that because when I did see the photo, it did look quite imposing behind that building. And I do feel that that should have been part of our of the documents given to councillors so that we could understand the impact. It's both an asset of community value and a Grade 2 listed building, and I really would have liked to have seen that in more detail. I had a very quick look at it, but I didn't really get much chance to see that. I do think there are a number of issues here. I personally would like to see this site built out. I think we do need homes on this site, and as soon as we can, we're in desperate need of homes. But I do have some major concerns, most of which have been outlined. Thank you for, from the councillors who have some, expert knowledge of their local areas. And as you've heard, I have been a bit concerned about the single aspect. The open plan design, there are points that I take as I've, had young children myself and understand that. But also, there are a couple of issues I'd like some clarity on. For example, they were talking about access and safety. Because of the low PTAL rating, I'd like a little bit more information on the infrastructure around and the access to transport, because obviously there's been some issues raised there. I'd also like to ask, it says that the balconies meet or exceed current standards. There's no detail of that I could see of the sizes of the balconies, and I'd be curious about that. The other issue that I don't think we've explored thoroughly is the noise issue. The idea of saying to somebody, don't open your windows in the summer because there might be noise outside. I'd like possibly to ask the, Barratt to sort of tell us a little bit more about that. So there's a couple of things that I'd like a little bit more information on before coming to a decision. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of questions, and I've asked the officers, do you respond now?
Yeah, if I just pick up the balcony point. So in the London Plan Policy D6, it has minimum requirements for private outside space. And it requires a minimum of 5 square metres for a 1 to 2 bedroom dwelling. And then an extra 1 square metre should be provided for each additional occupant. So if it's a 3 bedroom dwelling, then it will be 6 square metres, 4 bedrooms, 7 square metres, and so on and so on. The actual kind of dimensions of the balcony only actually requires a minimum depth and width of 1.5 metres, which these balconies do actually meet. So they do meet the London Plan minimum requirements for balcony space and private amenity space.
Right. Councillor Clark was also concerned about the picture, which was not on the park.
Yes, so the picture is in the application submission. In the design and access statement is in page 128 of that submission, along with the other townscape views. Unfortunately, when we're doing a presentation to committee, because of time constraints, it's not possible to provide all the visuals that the applicant submitted, but it is in the application submission, and that's what officers have been assessing. And then there was one more point on the travel impacts. So the active travel zone, which is the issue that helps to improve the public realm and public access to local transport amenity. That's actually referred to in paragraph 763 of the application report. Just double check, I can't read my own writing actually, just bear with me. It's either 763 or 765. Yeah, 763 of the application report sets out the measures that will be put into place. That's something that TfL will actually advise the GLA on when it comes to stage 2, what the kind of measures will be in detail. But there's also a contribution that will be required as well as part of the Section 106 agreement, and that's outlined in paragraph 1049 of the committee report. So there is a contribution that will come forward as well as part of that active travel zone strategy that comes forward from the GLA, TfL, and then the applicant has to agree as well. And that should help to improve the safety of residents walking to and from Lower Sydenham Station.
The member has also raised an issue of how you tell the people not to open the windows and close the window because of the noise outside. How do you address that?
I think maybe I can jump in on that, Chair, if that's okay. I think there is a welcome pack condition, which perhaps you're referring to, Councillor Clark, that points future occupants, future purchasers of that particular block adjacent to the Livesey Hall about the noise generating uses that go on there. There's no obligation, obviously, for you to keep your window shut. You don't have to. It's a personal choice. I think all of us live in London. Lots of developments are next to noise generating uses. I think the key thing is, and the officers are securing, is this welcome pack alongside acoustic mitigation measures to balconies, to glazing as well, to give people the option, if you want to close your windows, and you're not going to be subject to unreasonable noise, but also you can sit out in your balcony and you make that choice then yourself as to whether or not you want to do that at a particular time. I think the balcony condition, there's a specific balcony condition, I can't remember the number, that relates to specific acoustic mitigation measures for balconies as well. So I think this is a fairly common arrangement in London, and one that we as officers are comfortable with, and one that obviously we've seen lots of applications approved through this committee with similar arrangements next to noise generating uses. More so in the north of the borough, I appreciate that, but we have it in the south now too.
Can I ask the applicant to answer members' question of open plan, the open plan thing, kitchen, I think, yeah.
Chair, could they also talk about the noise issue? And I just wanted clarification if any single aspect flats actually are on that side of the building where the noise would be a problem.
Hi there. So Johnny Wong from the Architects. Firstly, on the noise, we've had acoustic tests, and they were conducted at agreed times when there were events on at the Livesey as well. And actually, the overbearing noise levels were not predominantly from the Livesey, they were from the main roads. So to the south, entering the retail park, as well as the access road to the back of Lidl. They were the main generators of noise during the test. So in line with the overheating, what we've done, the overheating has been assessed on TM58 and TM52, but the worst summers of the last 100 years. And like David, the officer, was saying, residents can close the window. Residents have the choice. They can close the windows, and if they do close the windows, they aren't subject to overheating, and it blocks out the noise. But like I say, actually, the majority of the noise wasn't from the Livesey, it was from the roads. For open plan living, actually, a comment as well is we meet all of the national space standards, the nationally described space standards, and building regulations. So Part M, for example, has an appendix on furniture sizes that you need to demonstrate you can fit. So all of the drawings fit that, except they look small because we would have large sofas, but we show the minimum for Part M. And for open plan living, going back one step for some comments about MVHR, there are no apartments that are being built now that are naturally ventilated. The reason why is MVHR is actually more energy efficient. It's background ventilation, so it removes moisture, stuffiness, condensation, and it also recovers heat. So in winter, the air coming in is warmed up by the heat going out, and in the summer you disable that. And so it's actually more efficient and cost less to run.
Johnny, apologies. Just before you come on to the open plan layouts, just to confirm on the noise work that we did. So from the project outset, we really understood, as per the agent of change principle, but also given the well-used nature of the community asset adjacent to the site, steps were taken to undertake the noise surveys in agreement with the operators of the hall at, you know, a worst case event time. So we really took steps to fully understand, you know, what the noise generation impacts of the hall were, and then you know, onus was on us to design in sufficient mitigation measures from a noise point of view. So on the noise sensitive facades, including those adjacent to the Livesey Hall, or looking onto it rather, the glazing specification is of an enhanced nature, basically, to make sure that the noise from the hall is fully mitigated within the scheme. And as David Robinson set out, there is a planning condition requiring the full submission of the noise mitigation strategy in due course. So we've really taken that point seriously from the outset, basically. Sorry, Johnny, back over to you.
And then lastly, on the open plan living, I think that's quite a subjective one, and it's really a pattern of what people are choosing now. Many people now, when you do a house extension, they create an open plan living, kitchen, dining in the house as well. So it's really just the way that people are living these days. I have a flat, two-bed flat that's open plan. I've got young kids, and they help me cook. But the point being, the flats are sized to the London plan and to the nationally described space standards.
Thank you. Any other question to either officers?
Sorry,
No?
Chair, just about the heating. The point was made that we could actually make this building an awful lot better with ground source heat pumps. And I certainly think with the direction on the environment that we should be taking this very seriously as well. And I don't understand why we're missing an opportunity here to improve our carbon reduction and use this ground source heat pump. And I just wondered if the developer could come back. Is that something that could be re-looked at with a development like this at this point? Is that possible? Because it would seem sensible to take these opportunities while we've got them. Like Councillor Curran said, it's another 100 years possibly this building will be here. It would be sensible over that 100 years if we save a great deal more, you know, and protect the environment at the same time.
Yeah, we have the applicant here. They can put up, you know.
Yes, sorry, to clarify, as part of the application process, we did actually review the feasibility of ground source heat pumps on site. Given the site constraints, which we chatted about previously, the bentonite wall, there's a statutory easement on site. The actual, you know, there was very limited potential to deliver a meaningful ground source heat pump led scheme within the site. So we've looked at it. In our strong view, the air source heat pump strategy, which is before you, is the best fit for the site. But also, just to clarify, as we said previously, the carbon reduction which we achieve does exceed the policy requirements. So we've really taken steps there to address that, basically.
Sorry, I'll one more little thing, because I realise I'm asking quite a lot here, but just to say that, as was pointed out, the actual policy says to get to the lowest possible level. So it's not about achieving it, it's actually getting to the lowest, which was pointed out that would be the lowest. And if you know, with respect, but obviously there's an expert here as well who believes that that's a possibility on site. And this person clearly has, you know, all the qualifications to make some judgment, though I understand you've been on site and you've done your tests and whatever else. It's a very specific site. But this just, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more direction on this one.
Just to clarify, sorry, so we had an initial energy consultant who prepared the initial scheme as part of the application. Further to the feedback from Darren Ball at application stage, Barratt actually instructed a second consultant, Ross, who's on the call today, to do a a peer review of our scheme, and also to explore the feasibility of whether ground source heat pumps were the best fit for the site. So just to clarify, we've had two very qualified consultants look at this scheme in response to Darren Ball's comments, and we've discounted ground source heat pumps, given that they're just not the best fit for the site in our view.
Alina, do you want to add anything from what is
Yes,
said?
please. Well, I'm ground condition specialist, and the site is underlined by London clay, then the Lambeth Group, tannet sand and chalk at depth. The ground source heat pump would be constructed to the chalk. Chalk holds very sensitive groundwater resource, and site is located in the source protection zone. So therefore, the Environment Agency is likely to object against the adoption of the ground source heat pump on this site, just based on the sensitivity of the groundwater at depth.
Ross? Ross, you are muted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just had a couple of quick points. The question really concerned, this building's going to be here for 100 years, and we were looking at the differences between the technologies. It's going to diminish as the electricity grid is getting cleaner and cleaner. All the coal power stations are going offline. So if you're looking at over that time span, there's essentially, you're going to have carbon-free electricity for many of those 100 years anyway. So you'd essentially have no difference. And then back on the policy, there is some confusion there, I think. It's obviously getting late tonight, but you've got this minimum 35% reduction, and then there's a benchmark within there that's 50. So that wouldn't be there. There wouldn't be that table in the regulations if the benchmark was essentially full reduction on site. Okay. I think, that certainly in my interpretation, that's how I would see it.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Chair, could I thank you for your time on this matter, because I do think it's important, and I will come to a close, but I do think it would be really good just to hear one last word from Darren just on his response to this, because I would just like to clear this subject and finish it.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. Yes. So can you hear me? Yeah.
So I don't think Darren had indicated he wanted to speak.
Yes, I do. Yes. I'd love to talk. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Darren, go on.
Okay. Well, as far as I can ascertain, the reports that were prepared by the first consultant, when I had no qualifications in energy consultancy per se, but what we have here is a consultancy that's been built up to fill in GLA spreadsheets, as far as I can tell from their spreadsheet. And I asked very detailed questions in our meeting, setting out, for instance, there's the Ground Source Heat Pump Association, who have a methodology for how you would go about doing a preliminary assessment on whether a ground source heat pump system would work. And none of that has been followed, or any other procedure like that's been followed. And we set out at the meeting very clearly what would need to be done in order to assuage my concerns on this. And then they went away to say we would do that. And they appointed another consultant, who, in inverted commas, who also fills in GLA spreadsheets. Are they members of the Energy Institute? Are they Chartered Building Services engineers? I mean, no geothermal engineers were bothered in any of this report. So we got this new information from still it is very useful, but this needs to be done as a proper process. And it just hasn't been done. Again, qualified building services engineer setting out a load profile for the thermal demand of the building, and then a geothermal engineer would then work out the yield of a pile and how many piles we would need. And maybe you can't give 100%, maybe give 50%, but the system could be a hybrid. It could be 50% ground, 50% from the air. It just has not been explored. And for the applicant to keep saying that they've done an assessment is just not correct. And on that basis, they haven't properly explored it. They just dismissed it out of hand. And I do not believe that your committee is getting sufficient information in his application to make a decision on this point.
Thank you, Darren. Do you have any question to, any more questions? Councillor.
Chair, I do think I have got sufficient application. You know, we're never going to be absolutely 100% informed about anything, but I think we've got more than sufficient information to make a decision on a planning application of this scale, on those issues about the applicant's choices and the investigations they've made on heating. And you know, we're none of us are here to have a debate on the merits of different forms of low energy heating, and the planning rules on which we're required to make a decision don't require the applicant to somehow achieve a zero carbon building or any other sort of perfection. They require them to achieve certain standards, which I think they've demonstrated that they should do if they build what they're proposing. So on this issue, I think we should wrap up this bit of the discussion.
Well,
Okay.
Chair, I'd like to move refusal of this application, if we're finishing now.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to refuse this application. In the second,
Do you want to know the reasons? Or?
Yeah, could you clarify the reasons first?
the reasons why we wanted refused, yeah.
First of all, regarding the Lewisham Hall, it's a very important asset. Everybody acknowledges that. So we have to be very careful, because this is once in a generation opportunity to make sure we get it right. The fact that it's an asset of community value isn't in the report, and it's not assessed in the report. I think that's an important issue. This is a very important asset to the black community. It's used an awful lot for weddings, funerals. It's incredibly popular. I live just around the corner. I walk past there probably every Friday, Saturday, every weekend. It's crowded. We get complaints about the noise, the traffic and everything else. So, you know, there has to be consideration to residents, and it's got impositions on it. I'm not surprised the operator is going to say, oh, this is normal, because they don't want any people complaining about noise. So the operator is going to obviously say, oh yeah, this is fine. It's not. It's very, very loud. And I really don't think that you can tie people in the future. I'm so sure of this, that they've got a welcome pack that says don't complain. If there's going to be noise, it's going to be very loud, and it's going to cause complaints. And I don't think there's anything you could do to stop people from complaining, and for it to be legal. And that, so the third thing is on that is the value of the asset community value. It's we were told there's pictures, but I've looked at all the stuff that I've seen before, and this is only this is the scale thing. From all other angles, it does dominate. The new buildings do dwarf from the long angles coming down Perry Hill, walking up Bell Green. I live there. I know what it looks like. So for those reasons, the Lewisham Hall is very important to the site. And in previous master plans, housing wasn't put there, because the whole site can accommodate. We're talking about the wider Bell Green area, 5,000 homes. Everyone agrees there's space for 5,000 homes. So that's the one issue on that. The second thing is the single aspect. It's clear in the London plan. You should avoid single aspect wherever possible. I don't think the mitigating circumstances are good enough to address that, as they say in the London plan. And also the other thing is working from home. There's not sufficient thing in the open plan accommodations for that. So that's some. Also, we've been given very clear expert evidence that much more could be done about the addressing the need for a much more ambitious reduction in carbon emissions. And it does seem that we need a better assessment of the ground source versus air source argument. It could be air source pumps will be the Betamax of the day, that they quickly go out of fashion, and I think this needs to be properly assessed, and it's not assessed in that. And for all those reasons, I think I'm inclined to oppose. That's why I'm moving to oppose. Just finished, Chair. This is the first building on a big site that should have a master plan. It doesn't, so I know I can't say that. I don't know why the master plan isn't there. I've met officers years ago. 22, there was a master plan was commissioned for the site by council, and it hasn't been put in the local plan. Now, that's not for this committee to discuss, but it just shows you how important this site is, because it's the first building, it's setting a precedent, it dominates, and it's a gateway road to the whole of the site. So for all of those reasons, I'm recommending refusal.
Thank you very much. Before I ask it to be seconded, can we get a legal perspective of your refusal reasons? Yeah.
It was just a question on one other thing that I also needed clarity on, because on the disabled parking, they said if there isn't enough, they're going to take up the 11 to 15 play space. And there was never clarity on whether that would leave us without play space for children, and I was also concerned about that angle.
Yeah, sorry, now that the motion has been put into. Let me just get a legal thing, because I don't know whether a legal officer should speak when a motion is in here, is in place. Yeah. Something? Just John?
Chair, I in trying to decide on whether to support the motion that Councillor Curran's just made, I appreciate him making the arguments for it, but I don't think I extracted from that a clear set of planning reasons that we could defend an appeal, or our officers could defend an appeal for why we're refusing it. Can you put those a bit more succinctly, or how many are there, and what are they, very briefly, Liam?
Certainly, it could be significant harm to the listed building and asset of community value. The fact that it's not mentioned, the asset community value, in the report is a significant thing. How can we make a decision if not all the facts are in the report? I on balance, I don't understand how it's vague. There's no detail in there about the noise from the Lewisham. There's no facts and figures. It's just saying we went, and I know that it is elsewhere in the report, but I don't think that an owner operator. We're basing a decision. It says it's in the report from the applicants. The owner operator says this is going to be not be so loud.
I have to interject here.
I thought I've said it.
Sorry, a motion has been proposed. It is what the reason has been given. It is a vote of what has been given, but it has to be seconded first. So we don't have to discuss a motion which is already on the table, please, and I hope that clears the way. So, in the seconder, please, for the motion.
But can we not clarify as to the exact areas? Because often when we have a motion, we clarify, make clearly that it's a material planning consideration. So the first one, for example, I found from the picture that it looked overbearing. The massing behind a heritage asset looked overbearing. And that is, as I understand it, a material planning consideration. And that, I think that's what Councillor Pashud was saying. Can we just be sure of our material planning considerations, because we don't want to put the council in a bad position. And I think the single aspect was a consideration on quality of design. and standard of living. So that can be a material planning consideration.
I think all those. Sorry, all those things, Chair, are in. You know, we've discussed it in the London plan. There is a paragraphs on single aspect. It's a question of balance. You know, noise. I don't think the noise thing has been addressed. The impact on the heritage asset, the missing information from the report. So I think there's enough there.
Yeah, sorry, you put a motion in. I'm now asking that motion to be seconded
I'll second it.
Seconded. Okay, we go to a vote. Or debate about another motion now. We can now debate because the motion is on the table. It's been seconded. Now we can debate. It's legal. Go on. Go on, Councillor Clark. You had something to say.
Yes, I was just going to say that we could maybe refine the reasons, and we could ask officers guidance on this as well to make absolutely sure that our reasons are solid for this and that they have clarity in planning law. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the legal side of it.
Thank you. Officers have made a recommendation that for it's got to that point in the evening where I can't make sense, but they've recommended that the planning application is approved. You, as the planning committee, are of course entitled to disagree with that recommendation, but the reasons that you have for doing so must be sound. I'm obviously here to help advise you if the facts that you are putting forward simply cannot be substantiated. I, at this point, would prefer to be advising you in private rather than in public.
Yes, can I adjourn this meeting and we go to a private? Yeah, I propose to adjourn this meeting to a closed session. Can somebody second that?
I'll second.
Seconded. Thank you very much. It's been proposed. Yeah, Post. Councillor Clark has proposed. Seconded. Yeah. Vote for it. Do we agree on that? Agree on going to a closed session at this
Closed
meeting.
session.
Yeah.
For legal advice.
We want a legal advice on the motion that has been put forward. I think you brought this here for us to make a decision. Yes, we have given you the opportunities. Now we have to get legal about it. It's not about, we haven't made a decision. I don't even know why you're protesting, because we haven't made a decision. It could be your favor. It could be either way. So I don't know.
So we are clear. Excuse me, sir. Can you, this is a meeting, or can you just,
Sorry, this thing is already made clear here on this park that we can go to a closed session. Is there on the park? We have said that we want to have we have to get some legal advice, and please give us that room for us to get that in private.
Can the chair has spoken, please? Can everybody leave the room who are not members of this committee? Thank you very much indeed. Councillors can stay, sorry. Not ward councillors, not councillors. I'm talking about members of the public. All councillors can stay, but members of the public, please leave the room. Can you please leave the room, please? We will call you back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Before the before the meeting was adjourned, there was there was a motion on the table that was recommending refusal, and the reasons were detailed by Councillor Curran, and that motion is still stand, and we will have to vote on it now.
Chair, can we not just reiterate what we said about the issue so that people understand why we're voting? I think legal said that we should do that in public. So can I just resume what I
yes,
said?
Councillor Curran, and minding the boundaries.
Thank you, Chair. So in my humble opinion, and okay.
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome back. Before the adjournment, there was a motion on the table that was proposed by Councillor Curran to refuse, and which was seconded by Councillor Clark. And before we continue, Councillor Curran would like to make some few remarks.
Okay, just to summarise, Chair, everyone in this room wants the level of housing that's needed on that site. No one's in disagreement. None of us are NIMBYs. So my proposal is to reject on the grounds of significant harm to a Grade 2 listed building and asset of community value, because A, it will impact enormously on the new residents, the noise. I understand that the applicants say that they have asked the operator, is this the worst you can do? And the operator is going to get complaints about noise, and I don't think they're going to tell them, yes, this is the noisiest it gets. They don't want to be closed down. We're concerned about the single aspect. There is provision within the London plan to reject them as long as you have the right reasons. I think I've advanced the right reasons. We're opposed to the open plan because of the increase in working for home. We're building for the future here, and we need to have enough homes, but it's the quality. And this is the first building on the site. It's going to be a landmark gateway building, and we have the opportunity to get it right. I don't think it is right. We're not here to rubber stamp. I do respect the officer's recommendations, and in the past I've often agreed and sometimes disagreed, never been lost the appeal so far. So I think I've just given you a summary because we're not rehearsing the whole argument again. I think everyone knows what the issues we're talking about, and I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you very much, and we go to the vote. Please switch off the microphone, please. Your mic.
Oh, sorry.
You're gonna go to the vote.
Are we not allowed to share the legal advice that we got given so that everyone in? This is the motion to reach.
Motion.
Okay.
This is the motion. And we are going to vote on that motion, which is still live. And the motion was to refuse this application based on the reasons given by Councillor Curran. And all those in favor, please raise your hands. Against? And there is no abstention. I don't see an abstention. Okay, the motion fails. We don't have another proposal. Members, do we, sorry? Recommendation, yeah, Councillor Lewisham.
So I just want to share, for the benefit of everyone in the room, the legal advice that we got given, and that was a reiteration of the fact that given our tilted balance, we've failed our housing delivery test. We must grant planning permission unless any adverse impact of doing so would significantly and demonstratively outweigh the benefits. We were told that on appeal, it would literally be 0% success. We haven't heard anything which will be defensible. Okay, I retract that then. We were told that it would, yes, in their legal opinion, yes. Given that this is a brownfield site which can meet 16% of the borough's annual housing target, and given the legal advice that we've been given, we're in this position because we have repeatedly failed housing targets. And I speak that as a member of a generation which has been locked out from the housing ladder, and a generation which still lives with their parents and can't get on housing. I can't see a defensible position, and so I'm going to move to approve, given our legal advice.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Chair, I've heard all of that and all of the arguments. I also don't think we have sustainable grounds to refuse this, and so I will second that recommendation in respect of recommendations A, B, C and D in section 11 of the report.
Members, we have a motion in place. We go for a vote. And all those in favor? Against? 2. And there is no abstention. So the application is got support to move forward. Thank you.
The application is approved.
It is approved with all the recommendation in it. Thank you.